the United States government is the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. But the United States government spent $10.1 trillion. Of that $10.1 trillion, $5 trillion was done through contracting efforts. The government sets a goal that 23% of every dollar must be spent with small businesses in some capacity. So you're talking about right around 100,000 people that get to bust down $1 trillion a year. Like, small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. One of the biggest myths with government contracting is people think the government pays slow, but they actually pay fast. Government contracting is the only business where there's full transparency. And it has to be because it's the government. Now, in my other company, we were already crossing 8 figures doing strictly federal work. If you talk to most people that talk about government contracting, and I'm sure you've had people on here before talk about it, and they all say 8A, you gotta go get your 8A. 8A is the best thing in the world. Oh, if you wanna get rich, you gotta be 8A. Don't go get 8A. I'm telling y'all, don't go get 8A. All right? And he was like, well, how much do you want? I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what my business is worth. He was like, well, write down on a piece of paper how much money you want. And I'm like, all right, buddy. So he was like, all right, cool. We'll have it to you next week. I was like, what? Which is why I do acquisitions now. And I do acquisitions now so much better because I learned what not to do when I sold my business. A lot of times I get knocked because people are like, oh, you make it sound so easy. I'm like, no, it is that easy. Figure out who buys what you sell, how they buy what you sell, when they're gonna buy it, and how you're gonna sell it to them, and you're done.
I love it. What are some of the common mistakes people make when bidding?
Not getting help.
All right. Hustle fam. We are back with another amazing episode. And today I have a very, very, very special guest all the way from Miami, Florida, man. This northeast weather must be killing you, brother.
It's not good for my bones and my joints.
Not at all. Mr. Kevin Jennings from GC Advising. What's up, sir?
Oh, man, thank you for having me.
Man, I'm excited to talk to you today, man. You are here to talk about a topic that everybody in the Truck and Hustle audience is extremely interested about. Okay. Government contracting, man. Yeah, man. So you run GC Advising.
Yep.
You've been in the government contracting space for how long now?
Since 2009. So it'll be April of 2026, it'll be 17 years.
Okay, 17 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get right into it, man. How did you get into government contracting?
Yeah, cool. So I started out my entrepreneurial career doing real estate back in the early 2000s in Miami. And I was developing real estate, building homes, rehabbing, kind of like what everybody was doing in the early 2000s. Doing great, really, really enjoying the space. And then the crash hit in 2008. And so essentially I lost everything, right? So I kind of had to switch up my hustle, and I couldn't build houses. I couldn't rehab houses. Houses weren't moving. The houses that I had were now undervalued. So I ended up losing a lot of the properties I had. So I just had to try to figure out a way to pivot. And I got turned on to government contracting because my father, who was prior military, he was an aircraft mechanic in the Navy, and then he went on to work for Eastern Airlines as an aircraft mechanic. He started doing government contracting in the late 90s. And what he was doing was he was working on military planes for the Coast Guard and the Air Force in South Florida. And so he kind of told me about the whole process. He's like, you should look into this. And so I started looking into it, trying to figure out what it was. And then I got into government contracting in 2009. April 2009 is when I started my first business in government contracting. And I started out doing just products. So just toilet paper, paper towels, like general necessities that the government needed, but kind of like went under the radar. And so that's how I got my start in government contracting, and then just grew it from there.
Okay. So before real estate, what were you doing before 2009?
Sports. Yeah, so I played football my whole life, and I was one of those guys that had all the talent to take it to the next level and be successful. My problem was I lost motivation and love for the game because I found a greater love for business and money. And so my business entrepreneurial kind of really started in college while playing sports. Okay. And so what it was I went to Florida A&M, so shout out to all the Rattlers out there. And parties are a big thing at every HBCU, right? But down at FAMU, like, we take it really serious, you know what I'm saying? And so like, we don't play when it comes to partying.
That's right.
So that's kind of what I started in the music industry. I started promoting parties, and I started promoting artists. And then I actually started back then that's when street teams were big. You know, prior to the internet, the way people got their music out there was with the street teams. And so I started a whole street team and promotional company in Tallahassee, and we would break artists and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I got my entree into business. And so when I started getting into business and doing that, football became like it was
secondary.
It was like, and I'm out of this. Because then it's like when you start thinking about the type of money that you can make actually playing football, if you're not one of the top 10% on the team, like you're not really making that much money, especially back then.
Right.
So back then we didn't have NIL and all of that. I tell people all the time, if NIL existed, you know, in the early 2000s, late 90s, a lot of people's story would be completely different because we'd have been able to be getting paid in college. So then that whole process of, you know, living off of net checks and stealing fried chicken from the cafeteria to eat, like that wouldn't have been a thing if we was making money back then. So, but for me, that, you know, it wasn't because it wasn't back then. So when I got into business, it gave me that, and I was able to start making money and really understanding, and I was like, yo, this is what I want to do. Right. A funny story, I actually got kicked out of business school at FAMU. And I got kicked out of business school because the dean of the business school told me I would never make it in business. And I didn't understand what she meant at the time, but HBCUs are typically a large breeding ground for Fortune 500 companies for them to meet their DEI goals, you know? And so companies like KPMG, they would come to FAMU and they would recruit business professionals. And then the more business professionals that these schools sent to these Fortune 500s, the Fortune 500s would then make donations back to the school, and that's how HBCUs generated revenue, was they would be able to send students to these good companies, the companies would give donations. I didn't fit the model of a student that could go work at one of those companies. Back then, I had dreads and gold teeth. I was who I was. I was Dade County to the core. Like I was Miami. You know what I'm saying? So, and because I wasn't the best student, she was like, "You'll never make it in business." And like I said, it crushed me at the time. I was like, "What?" She kicked me out of business school. So I ended up getting into engineering school, and that's what led to me being into the construction space doing real estate, was getting kicked out of business school. So then fast forward, you know, 25 years later, 30 years later, here I am doing business.
Right. So how did she kick you out the?
Yo, I'll never forget. The story's crazy. I never forget it. Like I remember, like it was yesterday. You know, God rest her soul, Dr. Sybil Mobley. She was the dean of the business school at FAMU. I had threw a party at this club called The Moon. So anybody that knows Tallahassee, they know The Moon. The Moon is where everybody goes. This big thing. It's Wednesdays and Saturdays. The Moon's crazy. I had threw a party at The Moon, and it had to have been a Wednesday night party because this was the next day I was in school, and I was in financial accounting, and we were going through, you know, balance sheets and how to do balances and things like that. And the teacher kept saying these things, and I'm like, "Yo, you're wrong." And I was like, I couldn't take it. And I was like, "You're wrong." She's like, "You don't know what you're talking about." I'm telling you, you're wrong. And I felt so confident about the way she was doing it was incorrect because I had just balanced my books from the night before from doing this party. Right. Because the way promoting works when you do parties is you do a party, you know, you get your ticket sales, your advanced ticket sales, you get your door. Then if you got a percentage of your bar, you got your bar percentage. So every morning after a party, I would go sit with the club owner, and we would go over the numbers from the night before, and we would reconcile our books. So I'm like, "Yo, lady, I just did this an hour ago. I'm telling you what you're doing doesn't make sense."
Right.
And she was like, "This is ridiculous. That's the last straw. I'm tired of you." And she's like, "Go to the dean's office." I go to the dean's office, and the dean's like, "We can't keep having outbursts like this, Mr. Jennings. You'll never make it in business if you don't learn to shut up. And I just can't have you in my program." Because they have at FAMU, they have a 5-year MBA program through the business school. So basically you come in and they accelerate your business program so that you're able to get your MBA in 5 years. And that's one of the things that a lot of people get into. And she was like, "I'm kicking you out of the program because you're not going to make it. You're not a business person." I was like, "Damn, that's crazy." But it worked out.
Right. Okay. So you left FAMU and you said you went to engineering school?
Yeah.
So what was the engineering? What was it?
Civil engineering.
What school was that?
So Florida A&M and FSU have a joint engineering school.
Okay.
So I got into FAMU FSU engineering school, and then I ended up leaving and transferring out right before I graduated, and I finished off at Florida International University in Miami, FIU.
Okay, got it. But you're no longer playing ball at this point.
No. I was at that point. I was done. I was like, "Yo, I'm out of this."
What's the highest level you made it to playing in football?
So out of college, I went. So one of my best friends actually got drafted to the Cardinals the next year, and so I went out there and was going to try to do the whole practice squad thing, and then when I'm going through that whole thing and I'm learning about the money they're making, I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm definitely out of this."
That's right.
I was like, like at the time, league minimum was like, I remember it was 326. So it's like 326. Then you got taxes. Then you got attorneys. Then you got lawyers. Then you got agents. And then I learned that playing football was an actual year-round job. It wasn't like just a seasonal thing for people to understand. Like, you got to keep your body in shape. You got to eat the same way. You got to train. You got to do all these things. And then when you start doing the numbers, it's like, if you're not a top guy, you're literally playing football for just because you love playing football. Like, you're not creating a revenue playing football.
Right.
And then I had started getting into real estate, and I started making money. I'm like, hold on. So if I go out here and dedicate my entire year, I'm gonna walk away with $100,000, maybe $150,000 after everything's said and done. I buy a property. I can buy a duplex. I could renovate it, refinance, pull out $75,000, and rent it out and make $1,500 a month for the rest of my life. And I can do that 4 times in a year. I'm not the brightest guy, but 75 times 4 is a whole lot more than 150.
Right.
And then for me, that was it. That's all it took, and I was like, yo, I'm out of that.
Got you. Okay, so you go to Florida A&M, you graduate from there.
I didn't graduate. I got kicked out. No, I actually didn't. No.
Okay, so you didn't graduate at all, but you did go to engineering school.
Yep.
So you learned a few things.
I learned a lot. Yep.
And then you get into real estate. How do you get your start in real estate? Where did you get the money to begin that journey?
That's a dope thing. So anybody that knows real estate back in the early 2000s, they were doing, so that's when the subprime mortgages were big. And that's when you could purchase homes at 110, 105% of the market value. So essentially, not only could you get homes with 0% down, but they would actually give you money at closing. So you could over leverage your homes. That's what caused the crisis and the meltdown, was because if a home was worth $100,000, you could get a mortgage for $110,000. So back then you didn't need money to get into real estate. But how I got into real estate and started doing it was when I went back and I was working in construction while I was going to engineering school. I would go to the roach coach, the little lunch truck, and all the guys would be talking like, oh yeah, we're doing this, we just made this on this house. And what guys was doing on the construction site was they would partner up. So an electrician, a plumber, a tile guy, a drywall guy, all 4 of them would get together. They'd all put in, $5-10 grand a piece. They create a little company. They would buy a property and they would work on it themselves on the weekend. And then that's how guys back then was doing real estate. So I was like, bet I could do that. So then I got with 4 of my other friends and we started a company. And then in our company, I was doing like drywall and stuff like that. I knew interior construction. We had another cat that was an electrician, another cat that was a plumber. Then we had one dude that was more like a street dude, so he was like, the money behind everything. And then we had another dude who was he was a correction officer at the time. So he had the good job with the good credit. So the 5 of us came together. We all put a little bit of money in. And then we started buying houses. And then that's how I started everything. That was like early 2004.
All right, so you do that for about 4 or 5 years, and you said in 2009 the market crashed. Well, 2008.
2008, yeah.
2008, the market crashes.
So I did real estate from 2004 all the way to 2008. In 2006, I started a car dealership. So I started doing car sales and stuff in South Florida. And so I was doing cars and real estate all the way up till 2008. 2008, market started going down. Things started changing because now you couldn't buy the properties anymore. That's when the defaults started coming and people started going through foreclosures and all that. So the market completely changed 2008. So 2008, 2009, they were like the worst. Those were the 2 years that kind of wiped out most people.
Yeah.
Because it's something that had never been seen before in America. So nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew how to handle it. The banks didn't even know what was going on. They were just being hit with all these defaults. They didn't know what they were doing. Then people were using straw buyers. Like, it was so much stuff going on. It literally caused us to go into a recession.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the whole country went into recession during that time. So for me, that's when I was like, damn, I got to do something. So I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I'm just researching everything. I'm trying to figure everything out. And then that's when I got turned on government contracting. And my first job I ever did in government contracting, like I said, I started with doing products. So I was selling toilet paper, paper towel, copy ink, hand sanitizer. I was selling products like that to local agencies, the VA, the Coast Guard, TSA, and I was just selling them those products. And then I never forget, I was doing work at TSA, and they had like some minor like construction work they needed done. And I was telling the procurement, like, yeah, I used to do construction before I got into this. I was, doing houses. He's like, well, you think you could paint this office for us and do something? I was like, yeah. So then I started doing what we call maintenance and alteration. So it's not real construction. It's just going in and doing things like painting walls, patching drywall, fixing floors, So I started doing maintenance and alteration work. And then from there, just snowballed up. So you start with small maintenance projects and you just keep going, and eventually snowballed out of control. And by 2014, 2015, we were doing, 7-8 figures a year in government contracting.
Wow.
So,
okay. Now, is this with the same crew of guys, or did you kind of separate from them, or you still work with some of those guys?
Out of the 5 of us, by 2016, 2 of them were still working with me.
Okay.
The other ones had kind of just went off on their own thing. But by 2016, it was still 3 of us together. The one guy who was the correction officer guy, he went, he was like, yeah, I'm just going back to my job. and then of course, my homeboy that was in the streets, he was like, yeah, I'm going back to the streets. Going back to my job. So it was like, so then it was this, me and the other 2 who were, technically, we were the construction ones out of it. We was like, well, shit, we going to keep doing this. Yeah, and so we just wrote it out and we kept doing it. And it was great. Like I said, we rode all the way up. And then in 2016, I opened another phase of my business, which was underground utility construction.
Okay.
So I got into underground utility construction, and I started doing water and wastewater infrastructure rehab. So that became really, really big back then, because what started to happen was a lot of cities started going through what's called consent decree. So that's where the EPA comes into a city and they say that, hey, your water levels are so poor that unless you make changes, we're going to essentially put elected officials in jail. And so that started happening to most cities, and if you do your research, most of your major cities in America right now are under some form of consent decree from the EPA. The water, I hate to talk about it, but the water quality in most major cities in America is worse than sub-Saharan Africa. And that's because of the different things that they do to try to treat the water. They actually make it a lot worse, and then they're unable to treat. You have a lot of sewage spills, long story. But if you're familiar with like Flint, Michigan or Jackson, Mississippi,
for sure,
those are essentially cases where it wasn't caught fast enough.
Right.
Because those aren't major. Those are like your sub-cities. So those are the cities that don't get talked about. So they don't talk about Flint, and the EPA won't go to Flint. The EPA goes to Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's kind of like what happened. So I got into underground utility construction. When I got into underground utility, that's kind of like what changed my life.
Okay.
Because then essentially what happened was Miami-Dade County was under consent decree. And the EPA basically gave them, their consent decree worked out to like $17 billion. So anytime federal money comes into state and local governments, it's held to the same rules as federal procurement. So in federal contracting, 23% of every dollar that's spent has to go to small businesses. So when the EPA gives the money to the state and local, they say, hey, you also need to meet our small business goals. Well, then when they do that, then they go out to the market and they try to find small businesses. So because I was doing so much federal work already at the time, I got called in by the SBA and other people, and they said, hey, this is about to happen in Miami, and we need small businesses to help do the work. I'll never forget, it was 5 of us that they took, and we had a meeting at Cheesecake Factory, right? And the 5 of us sat at a meeting at Cheesecake Factory, and they started busting down all these numbers, and they're telling us what's about to happen. And they're like, of you 5, who wants to learn this game? Because you have to get into it, because when the money hits the street, a percentage of it has to go to small businesses. There aren't any small businesses out there that really do this highly specialized work. So out of the 5 of us that sat there, it was like 3 out of the 5 was like, yeah, no, I'm good. And then me and one other person was like, I was like, because at the time, you got to think, 2016, I'm, 34 years old. Like I'm still, fairly young. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, I'll try it.
Yeah. And
so I got into underground utility construction. And when they started telling me the numbers, I was like, cool. And essentially, 17 billion was coming down. 10% of that was their minimum goal. So their actual goal was 23, but they're like, we have to do at least 10. So that's $1 billion. And of those $1 billion, there were only 10 companies in South Florida at the time that were qualified to do the work, and I owned 2 of them.
Wow.
So my lawyer was like, look, you need to do this. Just by default, you'll make $100 million in the next 5 years. Just because there's only 10 of you, and
right.
It's just math.
Yeah.
If it's $1 billion, there's 10 people, that's $100 million. He was like, you'll make $100 million just by showing up.
Right.
I was like, shit, let's go. So
no doubt, it's a no-brainer.
So that's kind of like where my life and my story really starts to evolve. Is I started doing underground utility construction, and then ended up making the money that they said I would, and essentially in 2017, late early 2018, I was actually acquired by a private equity fund.
Oh, wow.
Because I had
the
amassed
underground utility company?
Yep. So within 2 years of me owning it, I amassed essentially $100 million worth of work, and then I got bought by a private equity firm who wanted to utilize my contracts, and that's when my story kind of went crazy.
Okay. All right. So what's really interesting here is you started out selling products, and then you moved into a space that you weren't even really necessarily familiar with, but it was an opportunity. So you learned it. And that was the underground utility. What do you call it? Underground
utility. So it's
underground utility construction.
Yeah.
Okay. So just rewind just a little bit.
Yeah.
When you got into selling the products, right? You said your dad was the one who kind of made you aware of the opportunities in having the government as a customer. What was that process like? I mean, was it a quick process during that time for you? Like, what were the challenges in just getting into becoming a vendor for the government at that time?
Yeah, so it's crazy. So back then it was very difficult. So like a lot of people think it's difficult now, and I laugh, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing with Government Cheese, because I tell people like, nah, y'all don't understand how easy you got the internet. Right. Like when I started in 2009, like the internet wasn't a thing. Like there was no YouTube where you can go watch how to register on SAM. Back then it wasn't even SAM, it was FBO, Fed Biz Ops. But like you would have to go through the registration process. You would have to mail your paperwork in because email wasn't a thing. So you would have to mail a box with all of your documentation in. Then you would have to wait for them to send it back. So it was an arduous process back then. It probably took me a good 6 months just to get registered. It's funny, on the drive here, I was looking on fpds.gov. So with government contracting, you can actually look at transaction history. And so I was just giggles, pulling up my transaction history. And I started my company in April of 2009. My first recorded transaction on FPDS is March of 2010.
Oh, wow.
And then when I think about it, I was like, yeah. And those transactions, it only tracks transactions over 15,000. So my first transaction over 15,000 was March 2010, was $16,667. And so prior to that, like I was doing little stuff. And it took me a good 6 months to actually get set up.
Yeah. Now, did you understand the space that you were getting
Not
into,
even
like
a little
in the
bit,
opportunity
bro.
And how big it was going to become?
Not even. Because the thing is that even today, government contracting isn't really understood by the masses. And what happens a lot of times, especially in Black and brown communities, is when you start to hear the dollar figure, you're like, yeah, that's not possible. And so I didn't really understand the magnitude when I got into it, because you're talking numbers that I ain't never heard before, and you're talking about things that nobody that I know has ever done. So it's like, it's not realistic to me. So I was thinking very small. And so when I went to the SBA, because that's how I learned, I made a meeting with the SBA, went to SCORE, sat with them, and they talked to you about it and talked to you about certification programs and how to use them and all these different things. And when I go there and talk to them, even they weren't really talking about the magnitude. They would tell you, yeah, you can do this, you can make $1 million doing this. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But when you learn the numbers, you learn that there's only 61,000 registered small businesses that do business with the government. There's 36 million small businesses in America, but only 61,000 are registered to do business with the government. And with just small businesses, they spent $183 billion last year. So it's like, oh yeah, you can make $1 million, but the reality is you make $3 to $5 million just by being registered. And I didn't understand that at the time, because even they didn't understand it, because the numbers it just was unfathomable numbers. But it happened really fast.
Yeah. Now, when you were selling those products, how were you buying these products up front?
Nah, that's a crazy thing. So the product story I got is even crazier story.
Talk to me.
So, all right, rewind. Remember I told you I lost everything in 2008, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody in America.
For sure.
Right? I tell people all the time, the funny joke about it is I was bankrupt, but I technically didn't have to file bankruptcy because all the people I owed money to were also bankrupt.
We all bankrupt, so it's just
right. So it's like, it is what it is,
wash.
right? Yeah, it was technically a wash at the time. And so I didn't have anything. I didn't have any credit. I didn't have any money. So the way I did it, which is a strategy that I teach a lot of people, is I leverage net 30 vendor accounts. So a lot of people know about business credit and how to get your Dun & Bradstreet number, how to register, take your EIN, your DUNS. You go to people that offer net 30 vendor accounts like Quill, Grainger, Staples, and that's what I did. So essentially, doing products for the government is a very simple process. You get registered with the government. At that time, then you just go get net 30 vendor accounts. So Quill, Staples, Grainger, your basic ones. Look for products that those companies sell and then resell those products to the government. One of the biggest myths with government contracting is people think the government pays slow, but they actually pay fast. So in federal procurement, it's a thing called the Prompt Payment Act. So the Prompt Payment Act states that any small business has to be paid within 15 days of an approved invoice. So that means from the time you do business with them, if you submit an invoice and it's approved, the date it's approved, they have to pay you within 15 days. If they don't pay you within 15 days, then you're eligible for interest, okay? And a lot of people don't know that. So once I learned that, I used the Prompt Payment Act to my benefit. So they would give me a purchase order to buy something. Just say it's January 1, I get the purchase order. I would place the order with Grainger. Grainger would give me till January 30 to pay, right? I would have it drop shipped and delivered directly to the client, directly to the government. They would receive it on, say, January 10th. I put my invoice in on January 10th. They have to pay me in 15 days. I get paid by January 25th. January 25th, I take the money they pay me. I pay Grainger. I keep the difference. And that's how I started. And that's how I do it. And that's how I teach anybody to start in government contracting. If you don't have any money, that's how you start in government contracting. You can literally start in government contracting with no money. Now, how you scale, that's where being a business person and being an astute individual, because now when you make that money, now what do you do with that money?
Right.
How do you compound it and continue to do it? And so that's what I was able to do.
Now, how did you know what to mark the products, how to mark the products up in order for you to make some money?
So that's the great thing. Government contracting is the only business where there's full transparency, and it has to be because it's the government. So you can utilize sites like fpds.gov, usaspending.gov, and you can research past data on product sales. So literally, back then we didn't have USA Spending, so you would have to do what's called a FOIA. So we all, as Americans, we have what's called the Freedom of Information. So you can do a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act. So you can FOIA the government and ask them how much they paid for anything. Because you as a taxpaying citizen of America, it's actually your money. So you have every right to understand how your money is spent. So back then, when there was no internet, I would literally just FOIA what they bought. I would send a FOIA request to whatever agency and say, how much did you pay for toilet paper in 2008? And I would say in 2008, we paid XYZ for toilet paper. And then it would tell me the quantity that they purchased, how much they paid for it. Then I would just research and say, okay, if they were paying $5 a roll, I know that a roll costs $3. So it's a $2 markup. So now when I bid $4.50. Yeah. So now I undercut the previous person, but I still make $1.50. That's how I did it. But now it's even easier because you literally I can go on the internet right now on usaspending.gov and I can figure out what they paid last week because the data updates so fast. Back when I was doing it, data wasn't updating that fast.
Who gave you that strategy at that time? Did you just learn it, or did somebody tell you about it? Or?
When I went to the SBA and talked to SCORE, they kind of gained me on how to do your research with pricing. And then once you learn it, then you learn about how inflation takes place. So one of the great things about the government is they never pay less than they paid before. So the government has something called use it or lose it. So meaning once they get an amount of money in their coffer to spend, they have to spend that amount or they won't get that amount next year. But then every year they increase how much they get based on inflation. That's what stops people from essentially going backwards in life. So and we all know the cost of the dollar goes down every year because of inflation. Right. So 3 to 6% depending on what's going on in the world. So every year your contract value is going to raise 3 to 6% depending on what's going on in the world at a minimum. So then I just learned how to start forecasting based on those numbers.
Wow. Okay. And so you're selling multiple products. So so people could understand, like let's say you're selling toilet paper, right? Mm-hmm. You're selling toilet paper to who? Who would that be?
I was selling toilet paper to the VA hospital. I was selling hand sanitizer to TSA. Back then, I don't know if you remember when you have to go through TSA, but then that's when you had to take your shoes off. So then they would have the little booties there that you could put on so you could walk through. I was selling the little booties. I was selling latex gloves to TSA. Coast Guard, I was selling rope to the Coast Guard to tie up the boats. Anything they want. They buy everything.
And these are all separate contracts that you're being awarded?
Mm-hmm. Or they were all one-time individual. I was actually getting paid on credit cards. So I was actually bucking the system with the Prompt Payment Act because back then, so there's a thing called the simplified acquisitions threshold and the micro purchase threshold. So currently and today, the micro purchase threshold is $10,000. What that means is that every government employee has a government purchase card. And today they can spend up to $10,000 a day on their government purchase card without having to go through a contracting process. Back when I was doing it, it was $1,500. So essentially they would buy $1,500 worth of supplies every day. And they would pay me on credit card. They would pay me on credit card. I would get paid in like 3 days by the time the processing went through. So I was actually bucking the whole 30-day system. And that's how I was able to grow so fast. The good thing about then was, even still today, government contracting is a personable business. Like, it's very relationship-based. Back then, without having the internet, they couldn't search for a bunch of other small businesses. So it was kind of like the squeaky wheel got the oil. So I just stayed in front of all the agencies that were close to me. And I made friends with all those people, and then they were just buying from me on a consistent basis. People always ask, like, well, why do they buy from you? Why don't they just place the order themselves? If they did that, then our economy wouldn't generate. Like, small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy, because money comes to us as small businesses. We employ the employees. The money goes back into the economy. I pay taxes. They pay taxes. It's the whole circle of life. If they don't operate with business, there's no circle of life. And so government contracting has to take place. They can't just go buy things themselves from people.
Yeah, yeah. Now, were these contracts on the state level, like local, or were they federal?
So when I first started, I was 100% federal when I started.
Okay.
I started going state and local when I got into underground utility, because underground utility is done at the state and local level. But for the first, 5-6 years of my career, it was all federal. Yep.
Okay. Now, did you have any certifications or anything at this time?
At the time, no, I was just a small business. I eventually got HubZone, which is my favorite cert. I eventually got HubZone, but I was just a small business. And then when I want to say like 2016, maybe 2014, when I was getting ready to branch into underground utility, my father came and started working with me. And then I actually sold him my original company when I started underground utility, and then that's when we got veteran status.
Okay, got it. So once you started doing the underground utility, you stopped doing the products.
I stopped doing the products and regular
you
construction.
sold your father that company.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, so we moved to underground utility, and how long do you run that business?
Literally 2 years, and then I got bought.
Okay. For 2 years.
2 years, and I got bought out.
Okay. And then somebody comes in, they say, we want this contract, and then they buy you out.
It was my competitor. So I went to once again, like all these different stories in my life, I remember them so vividly. I went to a pre-bid meeting. So, in government contracting before, when they put a solicitation out, specifically in industries like construction, but they'll do it in different ones as well, they'll do a pre-bid meeting to where they'll let everybody who's interested in bidding come down. It allows you a time to ask questions, to see whatever it is that they want to be done. And so I went to a pre-bid meeting, and one thing about me is I'm a hands-on owner. Even today, in my businesses I own, like, I'm hands-on, like I got boots on. I'm in the business every day. I'm not one of them guys that just sits back. I can, but it's just not my nature. Right. You feel me? So I would go to these pre-bid meetings. And so one day I went to this one pre-bid meeting in Bay Harbor Island, and I'm there, and it's like 5 or 6 of us there. And the thing with government contracting, it's a very small community. Like I said, there's 36 million small businesses in America, but only 61,000 registered. So when you do government contracting, you know the guys in your area that do what you do. It's not like it's a big pool of competition. So it's like 5 of us there. I know all the guys. We all joke, we laugh, and we talk. But then there's this one guy there, and he's got like a 3-piece suit on. Now, mind you, we're doing underground utility construction. So we're doing sewer rehab. So we're literally popping manholes looking at poop and roaches, and this guy's got a 3-piece suit on.
Right.
In Miami in the summer. And so I'm looking at dog, I'm like, oh, what's up with bro? He don't belong here. And so I'm talking to him like, so what's up with you? And he's like, oh, hey, what's up, man? He's talking. I'm like, so what you doing here? He's like, oh, well, I just bought, XYZ company. He's like, you know him? I'm like, yeah, I know him. I was like, damn, I know he sold. He's like, yeah, we bought him out. And so I'm trying to learn everything about it. And so I'm trying to really understand the business. I'm like, that's cool. So we go on a whole site visit. We walking. He's talking to me. He's like, so, how do you think this is going to go? I said, well, when I win, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do this. He's like, what do you mean when you win? How do you know you're going to win? I was like, everybody knows I'm going to win. Like, everybody here knows we're just all here because. I'm like, you see him? He's like, yeah. I'm like, he just won the last 3 bids. So he's only got 2 good crews. So he can't do this because he ain't got the people to do it. You see him? The product that they want installed, he can't do that product, so he ain't going to win it. I was like, you see him and him? They just here because they ain't have nothing to do today. I'm like, so when I win, I'm going to do the job like this, and this.
Right.
And he laughs. And I'm like, all right, he thought I was joking. Lo and behold, like, the bid comes out 2 weeks later, I win. So I'm in my office one day and I get this phone call. This guy's like, hey, you remember me? I'm like, yeah, what's up? He's like, I can't believe you won. I was like, why? Why can't you believe? I was like, bro, I told you I was going to win.
Right.
He was like, I want to take you to lunch. I was like, all right, cool. So I go to lunch with him and we're talking. I'm like, so what's up? And he's like, have you ever thought about selling your company? I'm like, no. He's like, I did a little research and not only did you win the bid that I wanted to win, but you've won all this other work. He's like, what's your plan? And I was like, I don't know. I ain't really got no plan. Because I was literally probably like a week or 2 prior to that, I was awarded a 6-year, $98 million contract from Miami-Dade County. Now, mind you, it's me and 4 guys, and I just hit for $98 million, right? And so he's like, what's your plan? I'm like, I don't know. I ain't really thought that far into it yet. I mean, I got 6 years to figure it out, I guess. Right. And he's like, well, let me buy you and let me do all the work. So I was like, well, why would I do that? He was like, well, if you just hit for $90 million and you operate on a 20% profit margin, that means you're going to make $18 million in profit. But that means you're going to need $72 million to make $18 million. Do you have $72 million? I was like, nah, I really don't have $72 extra million. He was like, okay, I do. I was like, all right. And he was like, well, how much do you want? I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what my business is worth. And he was like, well, write down on a piece of paper how much money you want. And, you know, like, I'm like, all right, buddy. So he was like, all right, cool. We'll have it to you next week. I was like, what? I was like, say what? And he was like, yeah. And I'll never forget the craziest thing is, like, I thought it was a lot of money because it was life-changing money for me. Mm-hmm. They literally bought my company on a line of credit. Like, they didn't even, like, they didn't get a loan. They didn't, like, he literally had that amount of money on a line of credit.
Right.
He was like, yeah. He was like, that's not a lot of money. And I'm like, fuck, I just messed up. I could have got more money.
Oh, man.
And that's what happened. So I ended up selling my business within 2 years of owning it, just because I amassed a lot of contracts and they wanted them.
Wow. So in that 2 years, can you share, like, what type of revenue you guys did before you sold?
Yeah, so in those 2 years, so in underground utility in the 2 years prior to selling, I was high 7 figures, about to touch 8 figures. So okay. I hadn't crossed 10 million in those 2 years. I was mid to high 7 figures. I was teetering between 5 to 7 million a year in those 2 years. Now in my other company, the one that I had gave to my dad at that time, we were already crossing 8 figures, doing strictly federal work. But I only sold the underground utility company. Got you.
Okay, and is that realistic what the guy said, like 20% margins is like?
Yeah, so the way it works in government contracting is on small contracts, meaning contracts under the simplified acquisition threshold, so under $350,000, you're typically going to be at 8 to 12% margins. Medium-sized contracts, $350 to $5 million, you're going to be somewhere between 12 to 20, and then when you get over that, when you start to get up into your 5, 7, 10, $20 million contracts, your margins go from 20% on.
It's like economies of scale. Basically.
It's economies of scale, and what it is basically the way the government substantiates it is its risk factor. So the larger your contract value, the more risk that you're going to have, the more money the government's willing to pay for you to do it. But also, when you get to that certain level, your competition pool whittles down, so therefore you're able to increase. You know, the average person can't do a job over $350 million. So you're going to have a lot of competition. Over $350,000. So you're going to have a lot of competition on your smaller contracts. That's why your margins are going to be that 8%. The sweet spot where I try to operate now and with a lot of my students in my businesses is, call it $500K to $5 million. So $500K to $5 million, that's where you're going to start to like weed out a lot of the small guys, but then it's too small for the big guys. So that's that sweet spot. If you can go after, $3 million contracts, $2 million contracts, you can do 15, 18, sometimes 20% profit margins with very low competition. When you get over that and you start to get into your 7, 10, 12, $15 million contracts, that your profit margins are going to increase. But then now it becomes a little bit more of a trickier game because now people are spending more money. So those contracts, which are your large scale contracts, which is like in the trucking space, that's why it's so hard for a lot of trucking businesses to get in, because the contracts that the government puts out, they're 10-year, $250 million. And so the person that can do them, it's a very small pool of individuals that can do them, but then it's a 10-year contract. So that means that if it's out now, people are spending money 4 years in advance, 5 years in advance to get ready for it to come out.
Right.
And small businesses can't do that. Small businesses can't invest $250,000 a year in a contract, not winning, but preparing to even submit to not possibly win. Only big businesses can do that. So when you get to that level, that's why your profit margins increase, because the amount of money that it takes for them to prepare for a contract is so much more. And the government basically is paying them back. So they're saying, hey, we're going to give you a 30% margin on this job because we know that you spent $2 million to prepare your proposal. So this is how you're going to make that $2 million back. Not only are you going to make your typical profit margins, but your margins are increased to cover the cost that it cost you.
Yeah, which is similar to what you kind of ran into with the gentleman who acquired your company, right?
Right.
You didn't have that upfront
I didn't
capital
have it. Yep.
to be able to kind of manage that contract going forward.
Yeah.
All right, so you said that company was doing about almost $10 million.
Yep. When I sold it.
What multiple did he buy you at?
I got a horrible multiple. I got like a 2.25 when I sold at the time.
Okay.
I got a horrible multiple because, so the problem, and which is, I learned a lot through that. Let me say this before I go into it. So I learned a lot through that process, which is why I do acquisitions now. And I do acquisitions now so much better because I learned what not to do when I sold my business. So one of the issues why I got such a low multiple is because I didn't have proper processes and systems in place. So I had assets and I had revenue. So when you acquire businesses, you look at a number of different factors which go into your multiple. People, assets, revenue, systems. Those are some of your big factors that increase your multiple. I didn't have many people because I was an owner-operator, which that makes me a single point of failure. I had crews underneath me, but I was the brainchild of everything. So that lowered my multiple. I had revenue, which that's what they wanted. So they were able to pay me for that. I had assets, which I got dollar for dollar value from my assets on top of my revenue. But I didn't have systems. Without systems, then that means that they would have to come in and create a system for my business to operate. If I had systems in place, they would have been able to put anybody into my system and run my business for me. So that's what led to my multiple being a lot lower than what I possibly could have gotten at the time. But still, like I said, I still was happy.
Okay. You got a couple mil out the deal?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, got it. All right, cool. So after you get that, that acquisition happens, what do you do next?
Man, so I went to work for the private equity firm that bought me for 2 years. I worked for them for 2 years, and it was crazy because you take a guy like me, didn't graduate college, from Miami, and now I'm in a boardroom because what I did was I didn't take all my cash. I took stock options also, so I actually became an owner of the actual entity that bought me. So I did something very untraditional, unconventional, but it was one of those things I always had foresight. I was like, oh, this is bigger than me.
Right.
So I took enough cash, but then I was like, I want to own some of the company.
Smart.
They were like, you want to do what? Yeah, they're like, nobody does. Most owners are like, just give me my cash, I'm gonna get about it. I was like, nah, I want to roll back in. So I rolled a bunch of my equity back into not just my company, but the entire entity. So I became an owner of the entity that we owned. At the time, we were doing 9 figures in revenue. So I was a minority owner, but still an owner of this 9-figure company. So with that, I was able to sit at the table for everything that we did. All the subsequent mergers and acquisitions that we did, all the CapEx purchases that we did, all the contract negotiations that we did, everything that took place within that company over those 24 months, I was able to be a part of. I tell people I got a Harvard MBA. So I got kicked out of FAMU with their MBA. I'm cool with that because I went to business school in 24 months. Right. I was sitting at the table with sharks learning how to do this business at a high level. And that was the best and worst 2 years of my life, because I actually learned how business is done for real. Not in a book, not in theory, but like really how multi-million and $100 million deals are done. So it was crazy.
What'd you learn? What was the biggest takeaway from that in that 2 years?
Man, I can't even say there was like one big one. Like I learned so much. I learned about how to properly value companies. I learned about how to put real systems in place. I learned how to evaluate employees and how to put people in certain roles where they need to be at. I learned how to negotiate contracts at different levels. I learned so much. I'd say the biggest takeaway for me from that, honestly, was the connections that I made. Because now I was brought into rooms that I never should have been in. And so I was able to interact with people that I never would have met. So I made so many valuable connections in those 24 months, not just from business, but just life. And so that was one of the biggest takeaways, was the actual connections.
Okay. And they kept you on as an operator as well, right? So you were still like...
So I didn't operate my company.
Okay.
I operated the entire entity. So I became vice president of the Southeast United States. So I ran all underground utility options for this entity for the Southeast United States.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ran everything from Florida all the way through Tennessee.
Okay.
And so I was operating. I had at my company in West Palm Beach, I had 110 employees. I had another 80 in Tennessee that I had. So I was running almost close to 200 people. Equipment, I was operating about $50 million worth of equipment, and we were doing just north of $100 million in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
a year.
This is the company that acquired you that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. Cool. All right. So after those 2 years are up, you leave.
Man,
What
yeah,
happens?
it was crazy. So November 2020, I left. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn, what I'm gonna do? I was like, boom, I'm gonna go back into real estate. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna get back into real estate. At the time, I got my underground utility contractor's license. I got my general contractor license. I'm like, I'm gonna start a small home remodel company. I got a little bit of money, so I'm not hurting for bread. I'm gonna start a home remodel company, and I'm gonna, do kitchens and bathrooms for people, and I'm gonna flip 2 houses a year for myself. I flip 2 houses a year for myself. I make $150,000 a year. I do a couple kitchens and bathrooms in between the time to, pay my guys. That's my life. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, I go through the holidays. I say, I'm going to start fresh January 1st, 2021. I'm going to start doing my home improvement and my remodels and start flipping. COVID hits February 2021. The company
2020.
It was
COVID was 2020.
It was late 2020.
Yeah, it was March. Yeah, February, March 2020 is when.
It might have been. When that happened, it was 2020. So when that happened, I was like, damn. I started getting calls from all of the agencies that I was working for, because the private equity firm, they didn't know what was going on. So if you know anything about big money financial stuff, it's all about leveraging risk. And so when risk becomes too high and they don't know and they can't predict, they cut their losses. So they essentially cut their losses in the business because they didn't know what was going to happen throughout COVID. So I ended up essentially getting back into underground utility because I had all my clients, all the cities, everybody, they're calling me. Hey, we need this, is this. I'm like, well, I'm not there no more. Call them. They're like, yeah, they're not picking up the phone. I'm like, okay, so what do you want me to do? They're like, well, you got to help us out. We don't know what we're doing, this whole COVID thing. We can't send employees out. So I was like, all right. So I ended up getting back in underground utility.
Okay.
So I get back in underground utility. I'm doing it. I'm running it. I started my company all back over again.
But you're doing this through a contract now, or you're just doing this in the private sector now?
I'm still doing government work, but I had to basically restart my company all over again.
Okay.
And then a lot of my guys that now are laid off from the firm, they come to work for me. So I essentially went from zero to now again doing multi-million dollars in underground utility in less than 12 months, because I ended up picking up all the work that wasn't being done because nobody wanted to do it during COVID.
But how are you getting the contract to do that though?
I was getting them from the cities.
Oh, okay. So you're going back to government contract.
Yeah, I went back to government contract.
Okay.
Yeah, I went back to government contract.
So just for clarity, is it like once a contractor, always a contractor?
Basically, that's how it works.
Okay.
That's why a lot of people who do it, they don't get out of it, which is also why I'm doing what I'm doing now with acquisitions. Because when you're a government contractor, that's till death do us part. When you are working with the government, you can't walk away. That's not how it works. Like when you in,
Sounds
you
like La Cosa Nostra, man.
I mean, it's the government. That's what you want me to tell you.
You're right. I mean, that's the biggest mob out here. Right?
I mean, come on, like, and that's essentially. So it's like when they call you, you pick up the phone.
Yeah.
You can't say no, because if you say no, then you can never go back. So it's like if you decide that you ain't doing it no more, then you ain't never doing it.
So these are based on like they're calling Kevin, or
They're calling Kevin. No, because the way the government works is it's very relationship driven. So it's like when they know Kevin, they deal with Kevin, and then they're dealing with Kevin. They don't care what shirt I wear. It's me.
Got it.
So when all this stuff happened, they start calling Kevin. So I'm like, well, Kevin doesn't want to do this anymore. You can call these people because they now own my company and they can help you. But it's just, so I ended up getting back into it because they weren't answering the phones because it's COVID. So they don't know what's going to happen. You think about it, I work in underground utility, I work in the sewer. So we work around human feces.
Right.
They don't want to send employees out there to go hop in a manhole. Then feces gets on them. Now they get COVID, they die. Now their family member sues the private equity firm.
Right. But you was cool with it.
Yeah, I ain't care because hindsight, when you say it like that, it is kind of crazy, right? But I didn't care because the big companies didn't want to do it because they're mitigating risk.
Yeah.
The municipalities, the government didn't want to do it because they're mitigating risk. So then if I do it, now I am charging you more to mitigate risk. So this is a $100 job. But now I don't know if me or my guys are going to get sick doing it. So now it's a $600 job. So then the government's like, okay, because we don't have nobody else to do it. So during COVID, it was a small group of us out there working for cities. It was almost like, it's very similar to like disaster and debris removal. Like when there's hurricanes, like they'll pay anything to clean after a hurricane or a tornado. COVID was very similar. It just lasted so much longer. And so the first probably 3 to 6 months of COVID doing work for the government was very tricky. I mean, to be honest with you, when you look now, Trump just started bringing people back in the office just last year.
Right.
You had people that have been working at home remotely since COVID.
For sure. For sure.
Like he just did that just last year. Like that's crazy.
Yeah. So there was no like non-competes or anything like that in place that would prohibit you from working with them?
There was, but because once again
the situation, it just was like everything's off it just doesn't matter.
And I wasn't trying to compete with them.
Right.
Because when people would call me, I would send it back to them. But because they couldn't do it, it was like
it just is what it is.
It is what it is. Like I'm not trying to compete. I don't want to compete with you.
Right.
And so even when I got back into it for a long time, like I didn't touch like certain stuff that I knew that they had their hands on. And I would still tell people, hey, you got to call them. You got to call them. And then eventually, all that went away.
Wow. Okay, so you get back into it. And
so I'm back into it, man. I swear my story is like a soap opera. Bro, so I get back into it, right? So I'm doing it. It's going good. I'm making money. I'm running crews. My guys are happy. Everybody's doing great. October 2021, I turned 40. And I'm like, this can't be it, God. Because I asked for the money and all these different things. You gave me all that. But now I'm back in the sewer. So now I got money, I got houses, I got cars, but I'm back in the sewer.
Right.
I'm like, is my life just in a sewer? Like if I'm a Ninja Turtle, bro, just tell me I'm a Ninja Turtle. Like just call it what it is, God. If I'm a Ninja Turtle, I'm a Ninja Turtle.
It is what it is.
And I'm like, God, there's got to be more. So it was the craziest thing. I don't know if you know a brother online, goes by the name Detroit Mogul, Chris Bruce.
I don't.
So Chris Bruce and my boy Victor Gurley, they had a podcast at the time. And so I've always been, throughout my entire life, even when I was younger, I was always OG. You know what I'm saying? I was always the dude in the hood that the younger brothers would come to, hey, bro, how you do this? How you do this? How you get into this? I've always been that. So I've always mentored young dudes. So I was mentoring his young brother, Vic, and teaching him about government contracting. And then him and Chris started this podcast, and he says, man, Kev, I want you to come on our podcast. So I'm like, all right, cool. Now, mind you, it sounds crazy, but I never had social media because I didn't need to. So I didn't even know anything about this whole podcast wave, about I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
I go on the podcast, and I'm just telling them what I do. Just like we're talking about government contract, and I'm talking about how I'm helping Vic, grow his business and what he's going through. And Chris says, man, you should make a course. And I'm like, what's that? He's like, I've never seen anybody online talk about government contracting like you talk about it. He was like, you should really start teaching people about government contracting. So I'm like, listen, I don't know what that is, but if you do it and help me, I'll put it out. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So Chris helped me create the government cheese. He actually is the one that came up with the name government cheese.
Did he? That's funny.
And so he was like, you should start doing this. So I was like, all right, cool. So then I started learning about it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Because mind you, when I started in government contracting, the internet wasn't a thing.
Right.
So going to YouTube to watch videos on how to sign up for SAM and how to do your certifications, that didn't exist. So I'm like, oh, wow, now you can just watch a video? He's like, yeah, you could just watch a video and learn how to do it. That's what people do now. I'm like, oh, all right, bet, let's do it. So the government cheese was born, and then I found a passion for it. And I was like, this is what God telling me to do this, because the one thing that I learned was when I went to the SBA to learn about government contracting, I was being taught government contracting by individuals that had never done government contracting. So I was taught government contracting by people that were government employees, that their boss told them, hey, we need to sign up so many women-owned businesses this month. We need to teach people how to do this. So then when I would ask them, well, how do I get a contract? Well, I don't know. My boss just said you get a certification, because they had never done it. So I looked at it like, this is a chance for me to really show people how to do something that is really possible, as opposed to them just going to all these resources, learning from people that don't do it. That's one of the biggest things. Like, even when I started going online and I would watch videos about people talking about government contracting, it was government employees. A government employee can't teach you how to do government contracting.
Right. They
don't know anything about it. And so, but that's all we're exposed to. Nobody's really talking about how to do it. So I was like, bet. So then government cheese was born. And then I just found a passion for it. And I started rocking with it. So we created the Instagram for government cheese in May of 2022. And I've just been on this path since then, just teaching people about government contracting.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different reasons why I'm passionate about it. But one of the biggest ones is that in this country, most minority classes have only had the ability to be in business for less than 50 years. So you think Jim Crow was the 1960s, late 50s, early 60s. So prior to that, black people weren't even allowed to do a lot of things. Right? Women-owned businesses, women weren't allowed to own businesses until the 1980s. It was actually, people don't know this, but it was actually illegal for women to have a bank account prior to 1982, I think it was.
Yeah. So
all of these different rules came into place, and now the playing field is level. But when you do the research and you look at the numbers of certified businesses are actually decreasing each year. So what's going to happen is we're going to get to a point where those numbers are going to get so low that the big businesses are going to say, well, why are we setting work aside? Why are we giving them opportunity? They don't want it. And then we're essentially going to go back to where we started from. And so that became my passion for teaching communities about government contracting. It was, I didn't want to see those numbers keep going backwards. And I know what government contracting did for my life and how it changed my life, so I know it can do that for others. Is it for everybody? No. Like I said, there's 36 million small businesses, only 61,000 registered. So it's not for everybody. It's actually for a small portion of the population. But for that small portion of the population that truly dive in and understand, that small portion of the population, I feel like can make a lot of change. And so that's been my passion for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's dope. It's funny, you know, there's a show on Apple TV now called
Government Cheese, yeah, I know.
Did you see it?
I haven't seen it. I've seen the show.
It's actually a good show.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's about a brother. He comes home from jail and he starts this like drill company, and it's about doing work with the government. It's pretty interesting. I was watching it last night.
And they stole my whole story. So look, that's the crazy thing, right? So this Apple owed me a check.
It sounds like it might.
Apple, I need a check. I need a check. I need a check. So let me tell you the crazy thing about the name, right? So at first I didn't like the name. So this is how it came about. So he was like, you know, typical, we're gonna call it government cheese. Well, we getting that cheese from the government. I was like, bro, that's the corniest thing I ever heard in my life, my man. Like that is corny, right? But then I sat with it, right? And the crazy thing about it is, like I said, remember I told you 2007, 2008, I lost everything. So 2009, when I started my business, I was on government assistance. My daughter was born in 2010. You know, November 22nd, 2010, my daughter was born. I was on government assistance. I was on welfare WIC. I had to go stand in line to get the formula for her. Like I was on public assistance when I started my business. So for me, it's a double meaning that I was on government cheese when I began my journey with government contracting. And so that's why I kept the name. Because for me, it's bigger than just getting money from the government.
100%.
I was on public assistance for the first couple of years of me owning my business. And without being on government cheese, I wouldn't be the government cheese.
Yeah, I love that. All right, let's give them a little sneak peek into the government cheese, man. Let's talk about some stuff that's really tactical that people could actually take away. Walk us through the procurement process a little bit, just, you know, high level, so people could understand who may be just watching for the first time and don't know anything about government contracting. Kind of take us through that, what that looks like.
I bet. So first of all, the first thing you have to understand is the United States government is the largest purchaser of goods and services in the world. So the U.S. government is the largest single purchaser of goods and services in the world. With that being said, the United States government in 2024, which is fiscal year 2024, that's the only year that's the latest year that's being reported. But the United States government spent $10.1 trillion. Of that $10.1 trillion, $5 trillion was done through contracting efforts. The other $5 trillion was done for like paying their employees and stuff like that, right? Of that $5 trillion, the government sets a goal that 23% of every dollar must be spent with small businesses in some capacity. So you're talking about $1 trillion of spending goes to small businesses of some capacity, okay? So when you start to break down the numbers, it gets really crazy because when you talk about the number of firms that are actually certified, 61,000 small businesses, I want to say right now there's 18,000 8As, 12,000 women-owned businesses, 5,000 service-disabled veterans, and 2,700 hub zones. So you're talking about right around 100,000 people that get to bust down $1 trillion a year. So the numbers are staggering. Depending on your certification class, on average, every small business averages $3 million a year, woman-owned $3 billion, and hub zone $7 million. These are just the statistics based on pure numbers, and if you want to Google it, please do. You go to SBA scorecard. That's the great thing about government contracting is everything's transparent.
He said fact check me.
Please fact check me, please. And go in the comments and fact check me. SBA scorecard, you can pull up the scorecard. You can look at government-wide spending, you can look at agency spending, and you can see exactly where the money goes. So once you understand the numbers and you realize the magnitude, you understand that there's no other business like this. What makes this business great is because I don't have to go looking for my client. So there's no ad spend, there's no nothing, which goes into the procurement process. To become a government contractor is very cost effective. You can actually become a government contractor without spending any money because you don't have to even incorporate yourself. You can register on sam.gov as a sole proprietor with your social security number. So you can get registered with the government for free. I wouldn't advise it because once you start making money, now you're gonna be taxed as an individual. That's between you and your accountant. But it's a very cost-effective process if you were to go that route. Certification, once again, can be free. You can do it all through the SBA, go through the process. Once you are registered and certified, meaning you have a cage code, a UEI, and some sort of certifications, now you can start going through the process of finding work. There's multiple ways to find work. So sam.gov, which is the main portal for federal contracts, they list contracts over $25,000. So anything that happens over $25,000 must be put on sam.gov. It has to be public knowledge. Anything under $25,000 can fall under your micro purchase and simplified acquisition thresholds, that's where your personal relationships come in, okay? So one of the first things you gotta decide is, I tell people you gotta understand who you're gonna be working with. So what agencies buy what you sell? They buy everything. You just have to figure out who buys what you sell. Once you figure out who buys what you sell, then you need to figure out how they buy it. So how do they procure what it is that I sell? Do they use credit cards? Do they use long-term contracts? Do they use single source contracts? Once you determine those things, then you just need to determine when they're going to buy it. You can go on acquisition.gov and you can pull up the procurement forecast from every agency. See, in order for the government to get their budgets allocated, they have to create a forecast of how they are going to spend money and how much money they want. That forecast goes to Congress every year. Then Congress determines this is how much money you get. So you can pull up all of that information on acquisition.gov. So now you know who buys what you sell, you know how they buy what you sell, and you know when they're going to buy it. Once you know those things, now it's just how are you going to sell it to them? And you go to work. It's a lot of times I get knocked because people are like, oh, you make it sound so easy. I'm like, no, it is that easy. The problem is that you pull up a solicitation and it's 100 pages long. There's 5 pages that matter. The other 95 they just put in there because they're just government stuff they got to put in there. The problem is nobody's ever taught you how to read it. You see 100 pages and you're like, yeah, I'm out of that. I'm not reading 100 pages, but it's just 5 pages that matter. So once people understand exactly what to look for and what matters, it's not a hard process. It has to be easy because the government is the most systemized client in the world. They have systems, SOPs, or everything. I don't know if you military or know anybody prior military, but if you know military people, everything is a standard operating procedure. They have a standard operating procedure literally for how they tie their shoes. Like that's why every military person looks the exact same when they stand in a gig line. Your crease got to be a certain way. Your tie got to be a certain way. It got to be a certain length. Your shoes have to be shined a certain way. They have a procedure for everything they do. All you have to do is learn the procedure. Once you learn the procedure for whatever agency you're trying to sell for, it's not that serious. Now, where it becomes difficult is when you want to go out here and try to be Mr. End-all, be-all for everybody. That's not going to happen. That's too many procedures to learn. Figure out who buys what you sell, how they buy what you sell, when they're going to buy it, and how you're going to sell it to them, and you're done.
I love it. You said agencies. Can you break down what an agency is and what agencies people should or should not focus on? Kind of go into that a little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. So government agencies are basically, the way the government works is you have the main, before I go into agencies, let's talk about the different types of government.
Okay.
So you have federal, local, and state. Okay. So there's 3 different levels you can do government contracting. You can do business on a federal level, meaning you're working with the United States federal government. You can do state level, which is your 50 states, or you can do local, which is going to be your cities, towns, parishes within each one of those states. The main differences between the 3 are literally just complexity. When you're dealing with the federal government operates the same across every agency, across the entire world. If you do business with the Veterans Administration in Los Angeles, it works the exact same as if you're doing business with the Department of State in Taiwan. It's the same process. It's the same forms. It's the same everything. When you go down to your states, Georgia might work different than Texas. Texas might work different than Alabama. Alabama might work different than Michigan. So you have to learn how each state operates. When you go to your cities, Philadelphia works completely different than Camden. Camden works completely different than Jersey City. Jersey City don't look nothing like Newark. Nobody looks like New York, right? It's like every city. So depending on how you want to learn the game, that determines whether you want to do federal, local, or state. So then within each of those different levels, you then have agencies. So on the federal level, your agencies are going to be like Department of Defense. So that's your branches of the military. You're going to have the Veterans Administration. That's going to be your VA hospitals. You have Health and Human Services. You have Social Security. You have all these different agencies. Then every agency has what they call sub-agencies, which are their different branches. But you need to learn what agencies buy what it is that you sell, because where a lot of people mess up is they'll try to get in the game and they'll try to go to an agency that they think is easy. But that agency might not buy what they sell. And so if you're going to try to do work with an agency, but they don't buy what you sell, they may love you as a person, but they just don't buy what you sell. So that's why you have to understand who buys what I sell. And that's a very simple thing for people. If you're trying to figure out who buys what you sell, literally all you have to do is go on usaspending.gov. When you go on usaspending.gov, you just do a search by NAICS code. So your North American Industry Classification. That's the codes that you give yourself when you register your business. Like, what do you do? Okay, I'm a trucking company. Okay, you're 541-4439. I'm a construction company. Okay, you're 236, 00, whatever you are. So whatever you do, there's a NAICS code associated with it. You figure out what your NAICS code is, go on USA Spending, put that NAICS code in, and then it'll show you the agencies that buy that NAICS code. And now you target those agencies. That's the secret sauce.
That's the sauce. I got it. And what is the FAR?
Oh, man. So the FAR is the Federal Acquisitions Regulations. So the FAR is essentially, that's our government contracting Bible. So the FAR, like I said, Federal Acquisition Regulation, that is what determines how things are done. So it's basically the rule book. So just like any game, you got to learn the rules before you play the game. Chess and checkers are played on the same board, completely different games, right? That's the same thing with government contracting. So the FAR, I tell people, you should read it once in your life so you can say you read it, but you should know how to reference it. Because when you pull up solicitations, they're going to reference FAR clauses. So then you need to know how to go back in the FAR and understand what they're meaning. Because you'll see a paragraph that says such and such and such and such, and then in parentheses say FAR 239.3.3-6. So then you need to know how to go in the FAR and say, okay, what does that mean? Because what happens is they'll say, this is the rules of the game for this particular solicitation. It falls under this FAR clause. So the FAR it's a massive publication. Once again, thank God for the internet, because back in my day, there was no internet, and we literally would have to order the FAR offline, and it was like an Encyclopedia Britannica, a big book like this, and you would sit it on your desk, and you'd have to skim through it. Now you can literally go on acquisition.gov, on FAR.gov, and you can pull up the FAR, and you can read about the different things. It's ever changing. It's going through a lot of changes right now. A lot of good changes, some changes a lot of people don't like, but there are a lot of changes going on with the FAR right now to change the way the procurement process is being done, just to bring it up to date, because life doesn't operate now the way it operated 20 years ago. Right. So the FAR can't operate the same way.
Right. So you mentioned about researching what the different agencies buy, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing what the agencies buy. What about bidding? How does the bidding process work?
So the bidding process is very simple. Because it follows the FAR. So the way the bidding process works in federal procurement is there's different levels of procurement in the FAR based on contract size. So from 0 to 10,000 is what falls under what we call micro purchases. So micro purchases don't require any procurement, meaning I know I want to buy something from you and you're selling it to me for $5,000. I don't have to go ask for permission. It's a micro purchase. From 10,000 to what's now, they just changed it in October, the simplified acquisitions threshold is 350,000. So this is where a lot of your small businesses play, from 10,000 to 350,000. So in simplified acquisitions, what that means is that they don't have to go through a full procurement process. They can cut back some of the paperwork, and it's typically being done with small businesses. From 350 up to I think 5 or 7, there's a different level, and then 5 to 7 on up, there's a different level. So the first thing you got to do is you got to understand what level of the game you want to play in. Once you understand what level of the game you want to play in, then you can understand the FAR and how it dictates that level.
How do you determine that? What level you want to play at?
That's honestly, I tell a lot of my people, that's a personal choice. Like, I never tell anybody how much, because people are like, well, how much money can you make? I'm like, how much money do you want to make? Lockheed Martin, I just was pulling up data. Lockheed Martin was awarded a $1.7 trillion contract last year. And literally that $1.7 trillion contract was written on the same piece of paper as a $10,000 contract. So the work to do it's no different. It's really, what do you want from it?
But you have to have the capability.
Naturally, just to do anything. But the possibility is what people need to understand.
Right. That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. The possibility for you to do anything you want to do in government contracting is there. There's a lot of ways to do government contracting now that didn't exist, like when I started. So, and I'll talk about that in a second, but essentially from the procurement process, you need to figure out what you want to sell. That's the first thing. So you need to know what product or service you're going to bring to the market. Once you understand what product or service you're going to bring to the market, then we go back to the who, what, when, where, and how, right? And then depending on what product or service you're bringing to the market, it's going to be purchased in maybe like 2 or 3 different ways. One of the main ways is going to be your direct contracts. So that's where they want an XYZ service done. They come to you, you give them a price just for that. The next way, which is how most things are done now, are on some form of IDIQ, which is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. What the government likes to do now is they like to give contracts to people for multiple years to do a list of different services. You see this a lot specifically in the transportation logistics space. They'll give, like we were just looking at last night, FedEx's master contract expires in 2027. They've had it for 5 years, right? So in 2027, now FedEx has to go back and renegotiate their rates for the next 5 years. They don't want to, every time they need to move a truck, call FedEx for a quote. It's too much work.
Right.
They want to give FedEx a 5-year contract, put a large ceiling on it, and then they know for 5 years, FedEx, just go do whatever we want you to do for 5 years. That's how most contracts are done now. And those are, in some ways, easier to get because the competition is a little bit less because nobody wants to do the work to get them.
Yeah.
So that's the different levels of procurement.
Okay. So if I don't know what product or service I want to bring to the market, but I know I want to be a government contractor, that's what I know. How would you ideate
super
products
easy.
and services, like ideas? What would you do? Where would you start?
Super easy. It's actually an exercise I take a lot of people to. All right, so there's 3 sites, 3 main websites that we use for government contracting. All right, sam.gov, which is the one that everybody knows. That's where you go and get registered. That's also where you find a lot of solicitations, right? usaspending.gov, that's where you're able to find past award data. And then acquisition.gov. Acquisition.gov is where you're able to find your future procurement list and your forecast. So once you understand the past, present, and the future, you can paint a proper picture. The place that I start with everybody is usaspending.gov. Why? Because history repeats itself and so does the government. They buy the same things over and over and over and over again. The way I start with most people is there's 2 different ways. Either you're in business and you're not. If you're in business already, take whatever it is that you do, drop it in USA Spend It, and see how they buy it. They buy it. I promise you, nobody to this day has been able to stump me with an industry that the government don't buy. I tell people all the time, like, if you think you do something they'll buy, I promise you, test me, and I'll find you a contract for it. That's the first way. But if you are not in business, say you're just somebody that's like, hey, like you said, I just want to do this, but I don't know what I want to do. When you go on usaspending.gov, what I want you to do is I want you to filter it by your location. So put in your state first. After that, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to filter it by whatever classification you may have. Are you a veteran? Are you a woman? Or are you just a small business? Once you put those filters in, what it's going to do is it's going to then show you what they buy in your location with your classification type. And then we do what's called a top 5. So I tell everybody create a top 5, which is the top 5 agencies and the top 5 NACE codes. Once you understand the top 5 NACE codes and the top 5 agencies, now you decide what you want to sell. Because now we're not creating business based on what we think, we're creating business based on what they want. So the difference between government contract and a regular business is when people start regular businesses, they start it based off of what they like. I'm going to start a barbershop because I love to cut hair. Well, you ain't got no clients. Yeah, no, but I just love to cut hair. Okay, that's a passion. That's not a business. That's a hobby, right? Government contracting is not a hobby. I sell what the government buys. I don't care what they buy. I'm going to sell it to them. The thing that people have to understand is there's essentially 5 major categories that the government buys. Healthcare, IT, defense, construction, and facilities. Those are going to be your top 5 things that the government buys. That's not to say you can't sell something outside of those 5, but those are the top 5 things that the government buys year in, year out on a consistent basis. So I tell people if you want an easy start with one of those 5 because they're going to buy those 5. If you don't like those 5, then dive into something else. But they buy everything.
I love it. What are some of the common mistakes people make when bidding?
Not getting help. The biggest thing you can do in government contracting is not get proper help. Because even the big guys, they get help. The big boys, when they're putting together those big multi-year, multi-million, multi-billion-dollar contracts, they're hiring consultants to come in and help them craft those solicitations. You should be doing the same. The biggest mistake you can get is not get proper help when putting together a solicitation. And a lot of times, especially now, like getting proper help doesn't necessarily have to cost you money. You can get people to come in for equity stakes in the proposal. Like you can get people to work with you. In the government contract, we call it teaming. So I can put teaming partners on with me. And I say, okay, hey, I want to bring you in on this solicitation. You're going to be my strategic teaming partner, and this is what you're going to handle. And you can put together these teams because that's what the big boys do. They don't fight against each other because there's one common goal, and that's to service the government.
Is that like prime and sub, or
No.
that's something different?
Completely different. Okay. So prime and sub is where I go get the main contract, then I subcontract a portion of the work to you. Teaming is me and you come together to service the government as a unit. Very different than joint ventures. Joint ventures are for a specific time for a specific project. Teaming can be whatever. We can have a strategic teaming partnership that lasts forever. If we create a joint venture, it's for a specific project. So teaming is how government contracting is really done at the highest level.
But both sides of the team don't both have to be contractors. Only one person has to have the contract?
Yeah, it can go in one person, and sometimes we'll do that too, is we'll say, okay, you'll be like, hey, Kev, you're a little bit stronger than this. You take the lead, and I'll take the lead, and then you'll be my teaming partners for the rest. Yep.
Okay. All right, let's talk about some certifications, man. In the certification side, what certifications matter the most, or what are the ones that you really want to kind of look at?
So I'm going to catch a lot of heat for this whole certification talk, and I'm just going to tell you now before it even comes out of my mouth. Certifications are a slippery slope. Here's why I say. Most times people try to get certifications as a means to win contracts easier. The problem with certifications is if you don't know how to do the work, certifications can handicap you. Because certifications will stale your growth because you don't know how to grow without them. So, on the federal level, your primary certifications are small business, which a small business is classified as any business that operates under its NAICS code threshold and has, or if it's a manufacturing business, has under a certain number of employees, right? So typically it's 500 employees, and for size standard-wise, it can be anywhere between $20 to $40 million a year in revenue. So 99.9% of all businesses in America are small. So the minute you sign up on SAM.gov, you're a small business. Right? Literally 99.9% of businesses are small. Next certification is going to be your veteran classifications. So that's your veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned, okay? And if you don't mind, I'd also like to talk about numbers as we talk about this.
For sure, let's do it.
Because I'm fact-based, right?
I love it.
So small businesses, which is that 99.9%, there's only 61,000 registered small businesses in America. Veteran classifications, there's only 5,500 service-disabled veteran businesses in America. I hate that stat because literally there's millions of veterans in America. Why are there only 5,500 companies? Because they don't know how to become registered, okay? After that, then you have your woman-owned. So woman-owned businesses, there's only 12,000 women-owned businesses in America. There are millions of women in business, but only 12,000 women-owned businesses. The next one is going to be your 8A, which if you talk to most people that talk about government contracting, and I'm sure you've had people on here before talk about, and they all say 8A, you got to go get your 8A. 8A is the best thing in the world. Oh, if you want to get rich, you got to be 8A. Don't go get 8A. I'm telling y'all, don't go get 8A.
Don't go get 8A.
Don't rush to get 8A.
Okay. Don't rush to get 8A.
Don't rush to get 8A.
Okay.
I've been in business 17 years, and I still don't have 8A. I sold a business. I've made a lot of money in government contracting, and I have never got my 8A certification. Why? Because I learned how to do government contracting. I didn't learn how to utilize a certification, okay? The problem with 8A is that people get the 8A certification, and they think that now they don't have to do any work because all they have to do is show up. What the 8A certification does is that the 8A certification was designed by the Small Business Administration to help small businesses no longer become small. So the purpose of the 8A certification is to take you to and above your size standard in 9 years. The 8A certification is a one and done. So that means once you get it, you can never get it again. You have 9 years to maximize it. I am not a fan of telling people to get the certification because if you don't know how to use it, when your 9 years is up, you're done. The numbers are staggering at the failure rates of businesses that get 8A and lose it. Because the minute they don't have it anymore, you don't hear nothing else from them. Because they never learned how to do business. All they learned how to do was walk around and say, I'm an 8A, I'm an 8A, I'm an 8A, I'm an 8A. So that's my 8A talk, and the comments are gonna go crazy. They're gonna kill me for that. But it is what it is. Like, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. These are facts. Once again, if you Google the failure rate of 8A businesses, it's staggering. The last one, which is my particular favorite one, is your hub zone. So that's your historically underutilized business zones. So there's essentially businesses that operate in areas that are not normally business generating areas, and they employ people from areas that are not business generating areas. There's only 2,600 hub zone businesses in the world. Amazing.
2,600?
2,600 in the entire world.
That sounds crazy.
So when you add all those numbers up for all the different certifications, it's about 100,000 businesses.
Wow.
There's only about 100,000 people that play this game at the highest level. There's 36 million small businesses in America. Only 100,000 play at the highest level. So that's why I'm so like passionate about government contract. People are like, why you keep it? I'm like, bro, it's only 100,000 of us. It's 36 million small businesses. So those are your certifications. HubZone's my personal favorite, but I know the world's gonna tell you 8A.
Got it, man. I love it. I love that shift, that mind shift of perspective for sure. I've never heard that before, man. I've heard 8A, you know. But
I was taught, real quick, by one of the small business officers with the United States Army Corps of Engineers that do not go get 8A until you're operating at about 75 or 80% of your NAICS code. Because the purpose of 8A is to take you above it. So here's where 8A messes up. So I'm in construction. 237990 is my NAICS code. Okay, $42 million is my size standard. So until I'm doing at least $30 million a year on my own, 8A is not going to be beneficial. Excuse me. And the reason being is because if I go to the Army Corps with my 8A and I say, hey, I'm an 8A, and they can sole source me. So at 8A, you can get sole sourced up to $100 million from the Department of Defense in one transaction every day. So that means that as an 8A, you can go to the Army, hand them the paper, and they can give you a $100 million contract every day of the year. And they don't have to justify it. They don't have to tell people. The reason they tell you go get 8A is because it is a form of a simplified acquisition where they don't have to go through the procurement process. If you walk in, you're an 8A, they can give you a contract. The government loves it because they hate paperwork. I tell people all the time, people work for the government because they don't want to work. Like, we all know, like, think about it. It's funny, but it's not funny. When we was younger, right, and we was coming up, your uncles and boy, baby, you better go get you one of them government jobs.
Right.
You gonna get you a pension, baby. Baby, my pension finna kick in. Baby, you better go get you a government job.
That's a fact.
Because they don't work.
Right.
They're easy. Ain't no, man, baby, I ain't doing no work. I go to them folk job, I sit there, and then I leave. They don't want to work. So that's why they tell you go get 8A, because you come in with 8A, oh man, great, I ain't got to put this on sam.gov, I ain't got to review bids, and that's why they tell you do it. But it's pointless, because if you don't have the bonding capacity to bond a $20 million job, does it matter that they're going to give you a $100 million job? You can't do it.
Right.
So why you going to get it?
Right.
Get your weight up.
And speak on that real quick when you say the bonding capacity, what that means.
So in a lot of different industries, bonding becomes a thing, right? So bonding is it's a form of protection. So when you're doing construction, even in the trucking space, you have, like bonded loads and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's protection. So if you don't have the financial capacity to get that insurance to protect the government, they won't even give you certain jobs. And so what's the point of being an 8A where you can get a $100 million contract, but you can't get the finances to do a $100 million job? You don't have the bonding to do it. You can't afford the insurance policy. When you start getting to this level, your insurance alone is going to run you $200,000-$400,000 a year just for general liability insurance. If you don't have the money to do that, what's the point? So like 8A to me, like, you got to get your weight up before you try to go do it. Can you get your weight up through the process? Yes. But the problem is that for 9 years, people were giving you stuff. It's like kids, right? If you never made your child work for anything and you just gave them everything their whole life, what's going to happen to them when they hit the real world?
They're going to be spoiled. They don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do.
They stuck.
That's what happens to these small businesses when they get 8A.
Yeah.
They jump in the game and they get 8A, and within 2 years of being in business, now they're making all this money for 9 years. Certification ends, and now they're just standing there. Now they're calling people, hey, can you give me some work? Nah, man, you don't have your 8A no more. you got to bid.
Right.
Well, how do I bid? Well, you got to go on SAM and you got to submit a bid. Well, I only see, $200,000 contracts. I can't do nothing that cheap. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
That's
They don't know how to fish.
They don't know how to fish because you done gave them fish for 9 years.
Wow. I love it. All right, let's move along. Pricing and getting paid. Let's talk about that. How do you price a government contract competitively?
I'm gonna give you a real life scenario.
Talk to me.
Right? And I'm gonna look at you and say, if you don't run this play, because I'm gonna give you a scenario that you should run tomorrow, and I'm gonna tell you it. You feel me? I'm gonna give you a real life one to talk about pricing.
All right.
Before we do pricing, let's talk about payment.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to pricing. Payment has become so easy on government contracts, and the reason being is, first of all, I want everybody to Google the Prompt Payment Act. So the Prompt Payment Act we talked about earlier, the Prompt Payment Act states that as a small business, you must be paid within 15 days of a certified invoice. So the minute you submit an invoice to the government and it is approved, they have 15 days to pay you. If they do not pay you, you then are allowed to bill the government interest. The interest that they'll give you right now, I don't know, you might just put in a Prompt Payment Act current interest rate. Just Google that real quick and you're going to be blown away by this.
Okay.
But when he tells you the number, I'm going to tell you. The Prompt Payment Interest Act is current interest rate is actually more than the bank will pay you. You want the government to not pay you on time. You make money by them not paying on the interest that they have to pay you every day that they're late. What's the current rate? 4.625. Now put in current high yield savings account interest rate. I got an Amex high yield savings. I get 3.3%.
Yeah.
The government will pay us 4.26 because they didn't pay us on time. What's better?
The government. Don't pay me.
Don't pay me. So that's why I wanted to start with payment, right? Okay. Payment's not a problem.
Yeah.
The payment issue is a myth. And people
somewhere around 3.5.
Right. So the best money you're gonna get right now, today,
is by the government paying you late. And they're not gonna pay you late because of that.
Because they don't want to pay you.
Right.
They don't want to pay you the extra bread.
Right.
But once again, people don't know that exists. Majority of people out here don't know that the Prompt Payment Act exists, and they don't know how to bill the government on interest that they don't get paid on time. So that handles the payment issue. Aside from that, there's also a lot of businesses out there now because this has become a big business. So in trucking, you know how you guys have factoring?
Yep.
So now we have factoring on government contracts. Why will people factor government contracts? Look at the risk. He just told us that 4.26% is what the government's going to pay us, and 3.5% is what we'll get on high yield interest. So why wouldn't a factoring company want to buy my invoice and pray that the government pays them late?
100%.
Because now they're getting paid from me, and they're going to charge the government that money.
Yeah.
So you don't need money technically anymore to do government contracting because you can utilize alternative payment. And so factoring is a form of that. I don't advise it unless you understand it, because it is just like in trucking. It's high cost money, right? You know what I'm saying? It's going to cost you money to factor. So that handles payment. So
Before we move on, what about terms like net 30?
15.
Net 15?
I just told you it's 15. Prompt Payment Act's 15.
15. Got it. I missed that. All right, cool.
Yeah. Prompt Payment Act's net 15.
Okay.
If the government don't pay you in 15, they owe you 4.26%. And that's what it says, right? Check me if I'm lying. Because like I say, I hit them with the facts. Like I'm gonna hit them with the facts.
Facts.
Facts only.
Facts.
This is not feelings. These are only facts, my boy.
No doubt.
Prompt Payment Act says 15 days.
Okay.
After 15 days, 4.26%.
Got it. And that's on all contracts across the board, federal, state,
Federal.
Okay.
As a small business.
Got it.
Okay, you have to be a registered small business, which is why you have to be in that list of those. If you're not, you're not going to be able to utilize that.
Got it.
Okay. Outside from that, the beautiful thing about government contracting is on each contract, you are actually able to negotiate your terms. So on the first page of SF90 or 1442, which is the form that you submit with your proposal, you're able to put if you want to offer the government a discount for quicker payment. So typically what I teach my students, what we do is we do like a 2 and 10. So we'll give the government a 2% discount if they pay within 10 days. And so you submit that. When you submit your proposal with your price, you put your discount terms also. So in government contracting, you dictate how you want to get paid. Where people mess up is they don't know how to do that. So then they don't know how to properly submit. So they don't negotiate properly their terms. So your terms are what you dictate. But Prompt Payment Act says 15 days.
Got it. Okay, so now we're going back to pricing now.
Now, price is where it gets good. Like I said, before I give you the play, I'm going to tell you everybody. I talked to you about 3 sites: SAM.gov, USAspending.gov, acquisition.gov. SAM is the present, acquisition is the future, USA Spending is the past. To do pricing, what you're going to do is you're going to find a solicitation, and then you're going to go on USAspending.gov, and you're going to put that solicitation into USA Spending, and then you're going to find if the government has done anything like that prior. 9 times out of 10, they have. There's very, very, very few things that are being contracted today for the first time ever. If the government's buying something from you today, they've bought it before. Find how much they paid before, right? Because you can do that because it's public knowledge. And then you can look at it and you can add inflation and you can add the different factors that could cause it to go up. And that's how you price. When you're pricing things that are material and labor, even easier. Your material is going to be your material. And your labor, because we're doing government contracting, it's set by your wage determinations. So for every location, the government puts out what they call a wage determination. So here we're in Philadelphia. We can go up now and we pull up Philadelphia and they tell us for every labor category, what's the minimum that we have to pay somebody to work on a government job. You take that number, you multiply it by the amount of hours, you add your labor, and then you add your overhead and profit. That's how you price. Pricing and government contracting is super easy when you understand. The problem is people don't understand. And they try to price the government like they price everybody else. You can't do that. You got to price the government how the government pays. And that's why using USAspending.gov, FPDS.gov, and searching prior contracts, that's where that helps you. Because we can build our price model using wage determinations and things like that. Like, for example, janitorial work. Somebody may say, okay, I got a janitorial company. I pay my people $16 an hour, right? So now I'm going to price it at $16 plus my 20%. So I'm going to price it at $17.20, whatever it is, right? At my 20% on 16, so it's $17.20 is what I charge. But the wage determination rate's $35. So now you go in and you price $17.20, you're going to lose because you seem unrealistic to the government. Why are you telling us it's $17.20 for a janitor when the wage determination is $35? It's impossible. You have to pay $35.
Right.
Problem is people don't know how to look for that. So once you understand where the resources are, you literally just use your resources to price. Now you ready for the play?
I'm ready. I was waiting. I was like, I hope you didn't forget the play. Because that's all. Everything else you said, I was like, where's my play at? Talk to me.
All right, here's your play. Here's your play. There's a lot of different ways in the transportation space for people to get paid in government contracting. One of the biggest ways is through transport. Transport is amazing. It's a big field. Currently, right now, the Philadelphia VA hospital has their transportation contract in pre-solicitation, which means in the next 30 days it will come out for bid. That's a 4-year contract to do non-emergency medical transportation, so essentially Sprinter vans. And you take patients from their home to the VA back and forth. So they have a non-emergency medical, they have a non-emergency medical wheelchair, and then they have your normal ambulatory, right? So right now, the non-emergency medical non-wheelchair is about to be out for bid. So I did research, and I found that the previous time this contract was released, it went for about $2.4 million a year, okay? Well, the great thing about it also is I went on USAspending.gov, and I was able to see each subsequent year of that 4-year contract. And I did the math and realized that every year, the current contractor was increasing their price by 18%. So it was first 2.4 in the base year, 2.4 plus 18 for the next year, plus another 18 for the third year, and the 18 for the final year. So now when it comes back out, what's the price going to be?
18% more. I don't do public math on the podcast, but yeah.
You feel me? So it's simple, right?
Yeah.
So now I just told you what the price is.
Right.
You're going to go on USAspending.gov. I can literally show it to you. I got to say it on my phone. You know the price that they just paid. You're going to add 18% to that. That's what the current person is probably going to bid, if not more, right? Because you also have to look at things like how much has the rate determination changed for a driver between when it was originally bid till now? Did it go up 22 as opposed to 18 per year? Like,
right.
How much did it change?
Right.
And you're going to cross-reference that. And then you're going to make the determination and say, okay, we know that he probably is going to be no lower than that last year plus 18. So we know that his price per year is probably going to be 2.9. 2.9 or it's probably, I think I did the math, it's like 3.1. So we know his base price is probably going to be 3.1. So now we're going to work backwards into 3-1 and say, okay, this is the amount of hours that we have to do. This is the equipment. Can we do it for less than 3-1 or at 3-1? And then we submit the bid at 3-1 and we win. It's just math. And now the next question that people are going to ask is then, how do I do the work? I don't got no Sprinter vans. It's even easier. A government contract. I wish I don't have my wallet on me with my bread, but people don't know. You got $1 in your pocket? Just any piece of money. I'm gonna show you something just real quick. This is cool. I love to do this trick. Let me see it real quick.
Bring that dollar. Watch them.
So a lot of people have never actually read a government note. Have you ever read that paragraph right there?
This note. Go ahead. Raise it up to the camera so the camera can see it.
Read it out loud. What it
So
say?
it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private.
Have you ever read that before?
No, sir. No, sir.
So nobody's ever actually read what it says on $1, and it says it on every note. Every U.S. note says that. So this dollar isn't worth $1. This is a note. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's what currency is. That's also the writing that's on a government contract. So the same way you take this dollar and you can take it to the corner store and we can buy a pack of Annihilators with this dollar. You can take a government contract, which has the exact same writing that's on this dollar, to any bank that understands public and private debt, because that's what this note is. And you can leverage that debt for that note to actual currency. That's what people don't understand about government contracting, is they don't understand how to leverage the note for the debt. And that's what we do, and that's how we get money for government contracts. There's banks out there now that specialize in financing government contracts because they understand it.
Will credit come into play?
Nope, because it's not based on you.
It's based on the contract.
Because think about it.
Keeping your dollar by.
Think about it. On that dollar, does credit come into play with that dollar?
No, sir.
Because what has the value? The dollar.
The dollar.
Same thing with government contracts.
Okay. So are there special banks
Special banks. There's special banks out there that only deal in this.
Can you name some? Okay, let's go to commercial.
Commercial break. But there are a lot of financial institutions. There's actual, and people, please, once again, Snapple Facts, research, check it. Most of your large commercial banks actually have government branches within them. So a lot of your typical banks, your Chases, your Wells Fargos, your Bank of Americas, you can actually go to them, but you can't do business with the branch. I don't know. I'm sure people have researched, but you know that there's public branches and there's private branches. Like Chase has private client.
Yeah.
So Chase private client is completely different than Chase
Right.
regular. There's a level above private client that is completely different than private client. And then there's a level past that, which is your government. So you actually have to research the government office of those banks. But most of your commercial banks have a government arm, and that's all they do is handle government contracts. Right now, I think Wells Fargo's government arm is the biggest of those banks. Wells Fargo is the one they're doing the most with it. But like I said, it's not Wells Fargo. So if you walk into your Wells Fargo and say, hey, I'm a government contractor, they're going to be like, okay, cool. You literally have to go online and pull up the actual Wells Fargo government contracting sector bank and then communicate with them. And then there's a full list of, man, you can make so much money. You get into like, not to get too deep in finance, but since we're talking finance, SBA loans. We're all familiar with SBA 7A and 504 loans for SBA financing. Do you know that the SBA has something called a cap line and cap loan?
No.
Once again, you can Google this while you sit there. So just look up SBA cap line, cap loan. So an SBA cap line or a cap loan is a financing product that the SBA offers strictly to government contractors. So a cap loan is a product that they offer you that is a loan for a single contract. So once again, you're taking that contract, which is that legal tender, and then you're turning that over to the SBA, and they're giving you a loan based on that contract to perform that contract. A cap line is a line of credit that the SBA gives us as government contractors to operate government contracts. You can only use the funds on that cap line for government contracting. You can't use it for public debt. You can only, private debt, you can only use a cap line for public backed debt. So there's a number of different ways to finance government contracts. The problem is people don't know because they don't know. Like they don't know, like people don't know that the cap lines and cap loans exist. You found it, right? It's a real thing, right? It actually exists. Facts, like facts, not feelings.
SBA guaranteed line of credit.
What did it say now?
It's SBA guaranteed line of credit, helping, this is for the cap line, helping small businesses with short-term or cyclical working capital needs.
Yeah, strictly for government contractors. Cap lines and cap loans are just so. There's a lot of different ways to finance government contracts that people don't know about. I mean, we use one. I have a partnership with Nonstop Consulting for the trucking stuff, right? And so, like, we're able to help people in the trucking industry with rentals. So, say you get that non-ambulatory, but you don't have any sprinters. I can take you to my connection. We can get you sprinter vans on a rental basis based on you having that contract, and you're paying rental fees on those sprinters. And you can literally staff up that entire non-ambulatory contract with no money. It's going to cost you a little bit naturally, your insurances, your weeklies, things like that. But then I could put together a whole play for somebody and literally do it with very, very little money. Now, this is what I tell people. When you get into government contracting, it takes time, money, or a combination of both. If you come to me and say, listen, bro, I got all the time in the world. I can devote 80 hours a week to becoming a government contractor, but I ain't got no money. Cool, I can show you how to do it. It's just gonna take you a little bit longer. You come to me and say, I don't have no time. Here's a bag, go do it for me. Cool, I can do it for you. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. The ideal government contractor is somebody who can put a little bit of time and a little bit of money, but you don't necessarily need that. You can do it with either way. If you come to the game and you don't have the money, but you have the time, I can show you how to do it with just time. But you have to be realistic and understand it's gonna take you a little bit longer. When you go on the SBA's website right now, the SBA says it takes the average government contractor between $80,000 and $130,000 in 24 months to get a return on that investment. That's what the government's telling you. So you can't come to me and say, I want to become a government contractor and get rich in 6 months. If you go on the SBA, they're going to tell you it's going to take you 2 years and it's going to cost you $100,000. So if you can't wrap your head around that concept, it's just not going to work for you. It's just
makes sense to me.
it's just like that.
Difference between a winning proposal and a losing proposal.
That's subjective. And the reason I say it's subjective is it's going to be based on your agency. It's going to be based on the proposal. So one of the main things people need to understand about government contracting is not in most instances, it is not lowest price. The government does awards based on best value. So the government awards based on what they deem to be the best value for the government, which is not always price. So the reason I say it's subjective is it's going to be based on the proposal. But what I would tell people is the way you submit a winning proposal is to understand the scope of work and to understand the solicitation. So really understand what they're asking you to do and understand what they're asking you to submit. One of the great things about government contracting is in your solicitation, there's a section that's called instructions to offerers. So the first thing I tell people to do after you read the 1442 or 1449, whatever form they put it on, you want to go straight to the instructions to offerers. The instructions to offerers section is going to outline everything that you must do to be successful. And as long as you do everything that's there and you meet that criteria, you should be successful. Most people never read the instructions to offerer page, and that's why they're not successful.
And how much does past performance come into play?
It depends on what you're going after. So there's 3 different types of solicitations. There is an IFB, which is invitation for bid. There's an RFQ, which is a request for quotation. There's an RFP, which is a request for proposal. I listed those 3 in that order because that's order of complexity. Past performance matters most on RFPs. That's why it just burns me when people say, can you give me a proposal template? I'm like, why are you bidding on proposals? Well, I need a proposal template because that's what they say. Well, stop bidding proposals. That's just one of the 3 ways. If you don't have past performance and you don't know how to submit a proposal, stop going after RFPs. Requests for proposals require a full detailed proposal, which sometimes has past performance, it has experience, it has a number of different factors. The next one down from that is a request for quotation. It's just like what it sounds like. They're asking you for a quote to do this bid. In addition to your quote, they're going to ask for some other form of experience, past performance. The last one is an IFB. An invitation for bid is just a straight price. If you have no past performance, the minute you open up SAM.gov and you open up a solicitation, if it has any of the other boxes checked, not IFB, close it. If you have no past performance, only look at IFBs. The minute you get a little bit better, now you look at IFBs and RFQs. Once you've been in the game a couple years, now you go to RFPs. But the problem is people don't understand the rules of the game. They just want to play the game.
Yeah. What about compliance on the compliance side? I mean, who are you reporting to during these contracts? Do they do like audits? Like, talk to me about that.
Man, I tell people all the time, you taking the government's money. So they're going to want to know what you're doing with their money. So compliance is one of the biggest factors that can cause a government contractor to fail. When you are running a government contracting business, even at the smallest level, remember what I told you, every solicitation is written on the same piece of paper, right? No matter the size, no matter the complexity, a SF90, a 1442, a 1449, these are standard forms that they use. Size of contract doesn't matter. So that means the same level of compliance that they're going to hold Elon Musk and SpaceX to, they're going to hold me to. So where a lot of people mess up is they aren't operating in the right manner. Most small businesses, they operate like mom and pop shops. They rob Peter to pay Paul. They don't have proper accounting systems in place. People, they're in the construction space and none of their employees have OSHA. You know, they're doing things just trying to get by. When you become a government contractor, there is no more trying to get by. Everything has to be done to the highest level. But that's also why we make the type of money we make. We've all heard the stories before about the golden hammers and the 24 karat gold toilets. And they're like, oh, people are selling toilets to the government and a toilet will cost $50, but the government paid $1,000. Yeah, it's because I have to have a level of insurance. I have to have all the different things of compliance. I have to maintain my records for 10 years and hard copied and digital. So I need to have hard drives with all my stuff. I got to have a storage facility that has all my files. All of that costs money. That's why a toilet costs $1,000. And so, but people don't understand that. So compliance is one of the most things, and that's one of the things that knock people out off top. But the good thing about it is that the government pays you for it. So it's not like you got to do it on your own. That is factored into the cost of you doing business. That's why, like we talked about earlier, why those big contracts go for so much more money. There's so much more that goes into it. So that's why those people are able to get 30% margins, because they got to do so much more that you don't have to do.
Yeah. All right, so somebody just watched this video for the last hour and a half, 2 hours, however long we've been talking. What is the immediate next step that they need to take if they want to get into the space over the next 30 days? Give them the rundown.
Man, I'm gonna start with I'm gonna put my salesman picture on. So the next thing you need to do, if you're really serious about taking action in the next 30 days, is get into my 90-day mentorship program. My cohort starts on January 27th.
Okay.
So in the next 30 days, you need to sign up, get in that January 27th 90-day cohort, and we walk you through the whole process. If you don't have time to do that, what you could do then is, it's simple. Get on sam.gov, get registered, get certified. Start doing the research, understand the who, what, when, where, how. Once you start doing that, then you got to start bidding. The biggest thing that holds people back is they just don't want to bid. You have to bid, you have to fail. In this business, you cannot be scared of failure. There is no such thing as failure. Every time you submit a proposal, what you're doing is you're putting yourself in front of the government. You're allowing them to know that, okay, you exist. You want to do this business. The more they see your name, they're like, okay, this guy keeps bidding. Let me see what he's talking about. Now that's what opens you up for those sole source opportunities. That's what opens you up for those micro purchases. That's what opens you up for those limited competition things under the simplified acquisitions threshold. So you have to just start. You have to start submitting bids, and you just have to start going. The minute you start doing that, the better off you'll be. But getting started is simple. It'll take you, from the time you sign up on sam.gov, it'll take you anywhere between, give or take 30 days to get your cage code back. Once you have your cage code back, you start bidding immediately.
Got it. And what's the biggest outcome that you've seen or been a part of personally, just as a kind of just to tell people, like show people what's possible? Man,
it's crazy. I'd say in my last 3 years of doing this, I have so many different stories. I have a lot of successes right now, because right now we're doing business acquisitions. So I'm partnering with students, and we're going out and we're acquiring these baby boomer businesses, and we're taking these businesses and rolling them up, and we're scaling them, and we're doing government contracts. So the business acquisition has been one of the greatest. But I'd say outside of that, one of the single most successful instances I had a gentleman out of Detroit, Michigan. He was in the trucking space, actually. And he initially wanted to get into doing sprinters and doing non-ambulatory. But then he also had some construction experience. So he said, well, maybe I can get into doing dump trucks. So I said, cool. So I taught him how to start researching stuff. And he was actually able to go out and get 2 BPAs from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and he does construction material delivery for 2 different Army Corps districts. So basically running dump truck loads of material all over the U.S. He's got one out in the Dakotas, and then he has one actually here in Philly for the Philadelphia Army Corps. And that was probably my my favorite one, because he came to me with no government contracting experience. Like literally he was a trucker. Like he didn't know anything about anything. And now this year he'll do 8 figures in government contracts, and he doesn't own one truck. He essentially runs a dispatch company.
Wow.
And he dispatches dump truck loads all over the U.S. for the Army Corps of Engineers.
You said BPAs. What's that?
That's a blanket purchase agreement. So basically, he has 2 10-year contracts with the Army Corps, and basically, he doesn't have to bid. So essentially, every day when they need material, they just send him an email and say, we need 5,000 tons of lime rock delivered here. And then he goes out, he does that, and he just does orders all day long now for 2 different Army Corps districts.
Owns no trucks.
He owns no trucks. His goal for 2026 is actually, because like I said, he has it for 2 different Army Corps districts. He has one for Philly, he has one for Rock Island. And so his goal is to put at least 1 to 2 dump trucks in each facility, so that now when he's running his loads, 1 out of every 5-10 loads will be a load that he owns fully. And so that will increase his revenue. So he did 7 figures last year. He'll probably touch 8 figures this year in 2026. And so if he can put a truck in there with it, his margins will go from 10-12% to probably close to 40%.
No doubt. And when's the cohort start? Let's drop that one more time.
January 27th is the next cohort.
That's soon, man.
Yeah,
How many people do you take?
50 people in the cohort is all I take. It's very economical. It's a great way to get started. The 90-day mentorships have been one of my most favorite things to do. I started doing them last year, and I started doing them as private. So just one-on-one 90-day mentorships. And literally every person that's come through there has done exceptionally well. One of the last guys that did a private with me that ended in September, he was in that 4th quarter private, because the government works October 1st to September 30th. So July, August, September is the 4th quarter. So he did one for the 4th quarter, and he was able to secure $100,000 worth of contracts in that 90 days.
That's
and
dope.
So those have always been my favorite. And then for 2026, I say, you know what? I used to really cap them because I would do them as private. So it would just be like, hey, I'm working with 1 or 2 people a quarter. That's it. And I said, you know what? Let me open it up and do it in a group setting, and then I can take in up to about 50 people in one setting. And then I do that for 90 days and kind of teach the same things to everybody all together. And so I'm anxious to see the success rates out of that. But like I said, the people that have come through us that we've helped, everyone's had success that has worked. The people that don't put the work in, those are the people that don't have success.
100%.
Because I give you the whole thing. Like I just gave you the play with the vans.
Right. And who's going to do that, right? Like everybody who just now heard that, who's going to actually go
literally
and
that,
do it?
Honestly, bro, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Is people will tell me, and I'll literally sit there and give them a whole. I would do stuff on my group calls, and I'll pull a bid up, and I'll literally bid the whole thing, and I'll be like, okay, now y'all go do it because I don't want it.
Right.
And then people won't do it.
Right. So that's a challenge, y'all. We just now got to play right here.
Run it.
Philadelphia, non-ambulatory, non-emergency medical transport coming up in January. 30 days.
Yep, January to be out.
Go bid. Go throw it against the wall. See what sticks, man.
That's it.
That's crazy. All right, so recently, not necessarily recently, but more lately, you've gotten into acquisitions. Tell me about acquisitions. What type of businesses are you acquiring, and what are you doing with that?
Yeah, so the acquisition piece is really dope for me, because one of the things that I noticed when I was going through the process of helping people with government contracts was there was a couple things that were stalling people, right? And so one of the main ones is, like, we touched on past performance. So to get to a certain level, you're going to need past performance. But when you haven't been doing that long, how do you get it? Next one was cash flow. A lot of people come to me and they want to get into government contracting, but they don't want to leave their 9-to-5 job. So how do they do it? Next thing is resources. I want to get into this, but I don't have the equipment. I don't have the employees. So I don't know how familiar you are with the silver tsunami, but right now all the baby boomers are hitting retirement age. So by 2030, all of the baby boomers will be over 65 years old. With that happening, we're going through the greatest wealth transfer in U.S. history. Over $10 trillion of assets will change hands between now and 2030. 2024 to 2027 will be the most active years. So what's happening is all of the baby boomers that have your landscaping companies, your construction companies, your trucking companies, all this, they're getting older and they're going to retire. The problem is they don't have anybody to pass these companies down to. Their kids want to be TikTokers. They want to be YouTubers. They don't want to do that type of work.
Right.
But these companies have been doing government contracting for 10, 15, 20 years. So we've learned how to acquire these businesses. So now we acquire the past performance. So now we have that 10, 20 years of past performance. Now we have the assets to go out there and do the work. Now the person who had a 9-to-5, now they have cash flow because the owner of the business was making $150,000 a year. Now he's gone. Now we insert you. Now you make $150,000 a year. So the business acquisitions has been one of the biggest things that we've started doing in the last 2 years. And for me, it was something that I was interested in doing as a personal thing to continue my wealth building journey, taking the knowledge that I learned from when I sold my business and to start buying businesses to create a large conglomerate for myself to then exit that the right way to get my big number. And so now what we're doing is taking that knowledge and helping others do it because, like I said, with the acquisitions, you're skipping the startup. So now you're skipping that 2 years and that $100,000 that the SBA talks about. You're skipping all of that and you're getting right into business. And it doesn't cost a lot of money because we're buying government contracting businesses. So now we're able to leverage all those financial tools like we talked about, like with the SBA funding, like with the leveraging of the contracts and all that. We can use all of that to acquire the asset that is the business. So that's what we've been doing for the last year. And that's been hands down one of the best things I've ever done.
Tell me about the acquisition process.
It used to be hard, but it's very simple.
Okay.
Right now, like I said, we're going after the baby boomers. So these are people that are looking to retire. They're looking to get out of the game. We're stepping to them, making an offer for their business, asset value plus, a multiple on their EBITDA. And typically, if we're going SBA, it can take anywhere between 6 to 9 months to close an SBA deal. If we're doing owner finance deals, we can close in 60 days because it's literally just structuring a deal. Owner finance deals are happening a lot, and people don't understand why, but the reality is you got to think somebody's had a company for 20 years, and they've been making $10 million a year for 20 years. Do they really need your money?
Right.
No, they don't. They just don't want to close the business because they don't want to fire all their employees. And then like we talked about, the government contracting thing is it's a relationship. So if they shut down, the government's like, hey, man, why'd you shut down your business? So they want to give it to somebody that can keep it going. So owner financing is a great tactic right now to use.
How do you find those opportunities, especially people who want to do seller finance, and like where are you doing your research?
Right now, there's 3 primary ways that we find businesses. So the first way is going to be your typical way, your biz buy sell, your LoopNet, your business broker network. Business brokers have businesses for sale all the time. That's your first way. Second way is going to be through social media, through your Facebook groups, LinkedIn. You can find all those different groups of people trying to sell businesses. The third way, which is specific to government contracting, is we search expired SAM registration. So we find somebody who was previously registered, whose SAM registration may have lapsed within the last 12 to 24 months, meaning that for some reason they're not active right now, and then reach out to them and see if they're wanting to sell their business. And then those are the best deals to negotiate because you don't have brokers involved. You don't have any of that. You're negotiating directly with the seller.
Can you give me an idea of a business that you've acquired?
Yeah. So in 2025, we did 4 acquisitions. I did 2 for myself and 2 with students. So I had one student who purchased a roofing company in Orlando. We purchased a roofing company in Orlando. We paid $750,000 for it. It came with assets and revenue. 2025, we ended off doing about $2 million in revenue for that business. Set it up on owner financing. So didn't go SBA, didn't need a bank, didn't need credit, didn't need anything like that. We actually used the receivables of the business to finance. So basically, we collateralized the receivables. So basically, we factored them faster, paid the owner that as a down payment, then worked them off, and then we make payments to the owner for the next 36 months. That business was awarded $2.5 million in government contracts in November of this year. So we're starting out 2026 already at $2.5 million in revenue. So the goal is to get that company up to $5 million in revenue at about a 25% profit margin in 2026.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a government contracting business prior to you got to the acquisition.
It was, but it was small. Okay. They were doing residential and small government commercial. So they were doing smaller stuff.
Got it.
And then we took it and we just scaled it up and we're doing larger government contracts.
Okay.
So that was one of the good ones. One of the ones I picked up is a metal building company. They were doing small government metal buildings, so like small hangars and stuff like that. So pick that up, and we'll scale that to probably $3 million this year. So it's just the acquisitions are great, and both of those were done owner finance. So no banks, no nothing, no real big money down out of pocket, but we're able to get in there. They have assets, they have people, they have the past performance, which is great. So we picked up existing contract vehicles. So like with that company that does metal building, they have a multi-year buy board contract, which is like a GSA schedule. So basically, we don't have to bid on work. The agencies call us and they buy off of the schedule that they already have in place. So all we're doing is just marketing to the agencies that we're back active, because the old owner he's like in his late 70s. So he just wasn't active anymore. He wasn't calling. It's just if his phone rang, he did the work, but he wasn't going out there hustling. So we're taking that contract and we're hustling that contract.
So is the goal to buy the business, increase the value, and then you sell it?
That's the goal.
How long do you hold on to it before you exit?
So it depends on the entity and it depends on the contracts that are in place. My exit strategy right now is 36 months. So I'm going to turn over my businesses in 36 months, just to give people perspective and not to get too deep with the numbers. But as you can tell, I love numbers. Essentially, if you buy a business for $1 million at a 3X multiple, so that means that business is doing a little bit over $300,000 a year in profit. Take that business, scale it up to $5 million, do that same $5 million, and if you were to take those same numbers and say it was doing that 30% in profit, $5 million would be $1.5 million in profit. That $1.5 million, you would now get 5X on it instead of 3X. If you get 5X on that, that's $7.5 million. So you take a company that you bought for $1 million, you sell it for 7.5, you make $6.5 million in 36 months. In addition to that, you're making money every month in this form of a salary plus distributions, because you're still making that profit margin on that. So essentially, that's the easy way to go about it. I have a goal and a vision for what I want to sell for in 36 to 48 months. And so then for me, by me reaching my goal, I'm going to help a bunch of other individuals reach smaller goals on that road to get there.
And you have a certain type of company that you look for, right?
Just government contracting businesses.
As long as they're government contracting, that's all. It
doesn't matter. Yeah. The only thing is, like I tell people, there's out of those, remember earlier I talked about the 5 different major sectors?
Yeah.
The only 2 of those 5 major sectors that I don't particularly play in heavily are defense and IT. And the only reason is I don't do a lot of IT because, I mean, you've been talking to me, I'm not an IT guy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't do a lot of IT. And then I don't do defense because I just don't like killing people.
Yeah.
Like,
I got it.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I personally don't like killing people.
Yeah, not your
so
thing.
It's not my thing. So I don't do defense and I don't really do IT. I particularly healthcare, I love, like we talked about the VA work. Construction, I love because we're running out of skilled construction labor in America. So right now, carpenters make more than software engineers. And then facilities, I really love because nobody wants to be a janitor.
Right.
And I don't know the last time you checked, but every time you turn on and you look at the White House lawn, it's always cut. That means somebody's cutting the grass at the White House.
Yeah.
That means somebody's cleaning the toilets at the White House. And I've never seen a roach run behind the president's head when he's on camera. So that means there's some sort of pest control happening at the White House.
Right.
So facilities is always going to be needed. But nobody wants to be a landscaper, a pest control, or a janitor. So I love facilities. Facilities is the easiest, lowest barrier of entry for anybody to get into. Because what does it take to clean a toilet? Clorox and a sponge.
Yeah.
So for $15, you can become a janitorial company.
100%. 100%.
It don't get no easier than that.
Yeah, man.
You don't need no skills. You don't need nothing. $15 in a dream.
That's for sure.
And so I love facilities. I love construction. I love healthcare. But IT, great. IT has some of the highest multiples. So you can get some of your best multiples in IT because, SaaS companies that have monthly recurring revenue, they sell for great margins. Defense companies are also good. If you can get multi-year, the defense contracts, those sell for great multiples. So any government contracting business, I'll get into. Yeah.
When are you going to retire, man?
So I turned 45 in 2026. I'm giving myself 5 years. So 50. 50, I'm out.
So 50 is you plan on retiring.
50, I'm out.
You'll sell everything and then
50, I'm out.
you'll go be on an island somewhere.
Nah, I'm never gonna stop. I'm still gonna work. Like, 50, I'm out, and then I just want to continue to mentor and help people.
Yeah.
I want to help people, reach their dreams. I've got some great, mentees underneath me now. I mean, some guys that I could see that are gonna be way bigger than me. And so I'm excited to spend the next 10, 15 years helping them grow. I got one brother, he's like 29 years old. He started with me 2 years ago. He was working as a construction project manager, making $125,000 a year. This year, he did like $3 million with his own government contract and construction business. We're about to do an acquisition now in 2026, and he's buying another company. That company is doing $3 million. So 2026, he'll do $6 or $7 million between his company and his new acquisition coming together. 2027, we'll take him to $10 million with no problem. He'll be at $10 million before he's 35. I didn't hit $10 million till I was close to 40. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what's fun for me now is getting with people like that and just giving them the whole game and sitting back and watching him go to work. That's what I love.
So these aren't just students or mentees; they're kind of like
they're my
business partners.
Yeah. I don't have
Not kind of like they are
they
business
are.
partners.
The way I structured GC Advising, what it is now. Like I started out with Government Cheese, which is the educational piece, but GC Advising isn't just an educational program. GC Advising houses the Government Cheese educational platform, but GC Advising is a full advisory platform where we help people really scale and grow government contracting businesses. And so I have people like him. They're not students; they're partners.
Yeah.
I partner with them when I do an acquisition with a mentee. We're true partners. I have a share in the business. I have a management company that I created, and my management company comes in and we act as a fractional COO, and we basically manage the businesses with our mentees, and we help them grow and scale. So I don't have students. I have partners.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I love it. All right, as we wrap, man. So if you check out the show, man, we always do two things. Number one, we have to get a final thought from you, and you've been dropping a whole bunch of final thoughts. So I'm see where you're gonna go with this. But first, we gotta where can people connect with you directly? Where do you what social media are you on? Where can people follow you and so forth? Just drop that real quick.
Yeah. So socials, YouTube. YouTube is where I tell everybody to go.
Okay.
And the reason I tell everybody to go to my YouTube is where I'm able to give the game for free. So before you spend a dime with anybody, go learn everything for free. Make sure that this is what you want to do. Make sure that you can commit to 2 years and all of that to it. So YouTube, everybody, Government Cheese, YouTube, go watch all the videos. I got everything down there from how to register for SAM, how to do your certifications, how to put together bids, how to do pricing like we talked about. Everything's there. TikTok and Instagram, naturally, if you want them quick hits. TikTok and Instagram, same thing, Government Cheese. So that's where I can be found at.
Website?
And then, what? Oh. And then website is GCAdvising, GCAdvising.com.
GCAdvising.com. Okay. And then last, man, final thought. What are we going to leave the audience with, man? Well, it could be anything, entrepreneurial, spiritual, wherever you want to come from with it. Just a final word.
Man, final word is... this is a good one. I tell people all the time, you're not scared of failure. You're scared of success. So I want everybody to think about that. We're in 2026 now. It's a new year. Do things. Do not be afraid to succeed. People think that they're afraid to fail, and they're not. You're not afraid to fail because you're used to failure and you know what that smells like. You're afraid to succeed because you've never succeeded like you want to, and you don't know anybody who has. Do not be afraid to succeed. Fail forward. There's no failure in this game at all. Do not be afraid to succeed. Go out there and go get it, and it's there for you.
That's a whole word, man. Hustle fam, hustle fam. You know what we do around this time. If you smell something burning, it's only a desire. Kevin, man, bro, listen, where have you been all my life, man? Jesus, it's been too long, man. It was such a pleasure having you here, bro. Like, you really put it all in perspective. Thank you for your transparency and just giving out so much information to the audience. And I hope you guys take this and actually implement and use it, man. And if you need extra help, it's the man to go see.
Yes, sir.
Hustle fam, We out. All right, y'all. Listen, I'm happy to announce that we finally launched our YouTube memberships. Listen, if you want to support Truck and Hustle for all the hard work that we've been doing over the past 5 years, this is where you need to be. As a part of our memberships, number one, you'll get exclusive access to all of our archive content. Number two, we'll be doing at least one live webinar with one of the guests or somebody else from our network that you love to continue to add value to you and your business. Third, we'll be having exclusive behind the scenes content that we shoot and doesn't, make the final cut. So make sure you go check it out. Get that subscription right now and join us, man. TNH forever. Let's go. All right, guys, if you love Truck and Hustle and you love the interviews and the information that we're providing week to week, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. All right, Hustle fam.